Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to an all-new season of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing and powered by Trophy AI. That's right ladies and gentlemen, after last week's pre-season event, Season 9 is at long last, due to get underway tonight with round 1 of 10 being in the United States of America at the Florida State Circuit. And well, we better give it its appropriate introduction. Join in if you know the song ladies and gentlemen, it is none other than Daytona! Well, goodness me. Well, I don't think I'm going to go into the opera anytime soon, but that's going to be my best possible rendition of the infamous Daytona USA intro. And whilst we can't play it due to copyright reasons, we can definitely absolutely butcher it here with our vocal cords in the content booth. But that's all right, ladies and gentlemen. We are here at the Daytona International Speedway for our season opener, and the road course with its 3.56 mile length is going to welcome our drivers absolutely gladly. An intriguing combination where it consists of over 85% of the oval combined with an absolutely hair-filled, hair-brained infield section. It is a circuit where it's all about contrast. You've got to be smart with strategy when you're on the oval banking and carry as much speed as humanly possible as you roar your way around, and indeed save some fuel as you tuck in behind your rivals. Conversely, meanwhile, you're going to need to have to think about one thing only in the infield, and that is being tactical under braking and trying to beat your rivals into those hairpins. And if you can do so, and if you can break away on the exit of the infield, you may just be able to break your way away to victory over the race distance. But as we get set and ready to go racing today, of course, with this being the season opener, it is a grand reset of a season, for there being a new GT3 aero model and a new tyre model with it. And it means that for all the drivers, it is a case they've gone back to the beginning, they've gone back to basics, and at Okayama we definitely saw that with plenty of car variety, and with that car variety we got to see some brilliant action from the outset in Japan. But here today we'll see the field in full racing order, and they'll be absolutely looking to give it their all. Now I can see immediately some of you a bit concerned there in the YouTube chat, the fact there's something wrong with the Split A stream, and well, it has gone down, but it's got a new link ladies and gentlemen, and we post it there in the YouTube chat for you. So we do say hello there to Lord Timeout Denim and also to James Firth. And if you do want to catch Split A, use that link in the YouTube chat right now, and you can hop your way over there and be in the very capable and comfortable hands of your broadcasters and commentators over there of Joe Glass and Darren Thacker. But if you decide to stay here, we're very happy to have you here with us, because you're tuning in to Split B, the Premier and Evo class, the lower two of the driver classes, the lower split if you will. But whilst the I ratings may be lower, the action is by no less absolutely exciting as the drivers get ready to go racing. And in the content booth you have myself, Paul Walsh, also known as TX11, or Brit in the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action for Season 9. But let's give you a little bit of an introduction then of coming into Season 9. So last time out, we were at Okayama for the pre-season event, but that was all the way back on the 19th of June. And now we're here today on the 26th of June, and we're going to be going racing at the Daytona International Road Course. We open up with a 60-minute feature race for this campaign, not sprint races, unlike Season 8, and after today, we'll be making our way to the United Kingdom for the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit in round number 2 on the 3rd of July. As we head into prime summer season in the United Kingdom, very quickly we find ourselves returning to Japan, albeit this time in true anger to score some big points, and that will be for round number 3 at the Fuji International Grand Prix Speedway circuit on the 10th of July, after which we go from one feature race to another, because we'll head to Belgium for the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps and the questionable weather on the 17th of July. From hour-long races, we then head back to the sprint format, and it will be 2 sprint race rounds, starting off with round number 5 at the Virginia International Raceway full course on the 24th of July, and you'll notice there a small asterisk by the name of the circuit, and if you look at the small text a little bit further underneath the schedule, we should point out that that round will not be broadcast live from circuit side, it will be broadcast the day after the racing is complete due to scheduling limitations, but I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't tuned into a post-round broadcast as if it were live, well, you are going to be in for a treat, and indeed you won't know the difference between the live race and a post-round broadcast, we promise you that. But from round number 5, then in round number 6, we make our way back from the United States of America to the European continent and to Italy for the Mazzano Grand Prix circuit, and the Marco Simoncelli circuit will welcome our drivers with open arms on the 31st of July as we roar away into the second half of the season, and we complete a triple header of sprint race rounds in France with round number 7 on the 7th of August at the Magny-Cours Grand Prix circuit, or the Circuit de Magny-Cours as it's known in full. Then we head to Brazil for round number 8, it's a feature race round there at the Grand Prix circuit, and the sun will be shining gladly on the 14th of August. From the 21st of August, we head to Road America, and the Wisconsin State countryside will welcome our drivers, but we then head back to the United Kingdom and we bring it all to a close at the home of British motor racing. The Silverstone Grand Prix circuit will be crowning our champions in a 60-minute feature race finale on the 28th of August. Well, goodness me, it's a breathtaking schedule for Season 9. It really does feel as though this is a best hit schedule of GT3 class racing, with all these circuits having hosted GT3 class racing, even the modern era or in the past era, and we have got plenty of treats in store. But if we're going to be competing over 10 rounds of racing, what will our drivers be competing for in the Drivers and Teams Championships, I hear you ask? Well, let's answer your question. And here we are. There are 40 personalised driver trophies to be won in each of our 4 driver classes, whether it be Elite and Pro, which you'll see in the Split A broadcast that's simultaneously ongoing on the Evolution Sim Racing YouTube channel, which you're tuning into right now. Indeed, go to youtube.com and search for Evolution Sim Racing. If you haven't subscribed, or alternatively hit the notification icon, do so when you're ready. And well, we'll see there in Elite and Pro, it's our top 5 drivers who take home trophies. Here in Premier and Evo, we also see the same. Our top 5 drivers in each class will take home personalised trophies for their racing endeavours. We also do have the Teams Championship, and all drivers in the top 5 teams will be taking home personalised trophies as well, and that's why we're offering a grand total of 40 trophies up for grabs. Indeed, it's full-on trophy season. I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, these trophies are absolutely spectacular, and our drivers are very eager to get their hands on them. But we talk about trophies, we talk about prizes, we mention that drivers want to hunt them. But who are our drivers for this season? You're perhaps wondering, okay, well that's all well and good, but let's go straight into those names then. We have got a grand total of 60 drivers who are going to be on the grid for this season. In the Premier class, they'll be consisting of a grand total, I do believe, out of all 60 odd drivers, it's going to be a grand total of 31 Premier drivers, and here they are. There's plenty of returning names, there's plenty of new names, and we can't go quite through all of them, because otherwise we'll be here waxing lyrical all day, but let's give you some highlights there. And starting off there with Hussein Sarkaldesla, and the Suma GP2 racing driver joins the grid, and indeed wasn't on the grid for Season 8, I do believe it's his debut, and we look forward to seeing what he can do for Suma GP2. But from him, we do have the returning name of Luke Bailey for Glass Tech Racing, and he'll be very eager to try and impress as best as humanly possible. We also do have there some other returning names, including none other than Minno Blum for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, and his teammate Mark De Vries. We've also got Pete Piper there for LS Racing. And further on down the order, we also have Stuart W.H. Rice of Blue Sky Esports. In terms of previous champions who are coming into this class from Season 8, you may remember, of course, in Season 8 in the Evo class, your winner was Wesley Van Rens, but he's back on the grid for this season, and he rejoins in the Premier class. He's moved up, and he'll be racing for 9 Pegasus Pantera there, and you can see him on the right-hand side of the tables on what is an iRating of 1,331, and he'll be looking to rise to the ranks. We also do have, moving into the Premier class, your runner-up from Evo last season, season, and that's Andrea Muntin, and well, he's going to be racing once again in the capable hands of Axis Sim Sports Ice. And we also do have your third place finisher from the Evo class in Season 8. He's making his way into Premier, and that's going to be Grant Miller, the one who definitely was one to watch at Okayama, sporting for this season, moving away from the Ford Mustang and into the McLaren 720S Evo machine, and he was absolutely lightning quick over a single lap and indeed over race pace, buying some mistakes at Okayama. And could he be the man who set himself to be an early favourite in the Premier class? Well, we'll have to see, because there are plenty of drivers out there who'll be very eager to try and do a good job. And in fact, I mark my words there, because Grant Miller's still in the Evo class. I get ahead of myself, I do apologise. Our top two from Evo last season moved to Premier, but let's come on to Evo then, and we'll Grant Miller back in Evo and looking to take the spoils there. And you can see him on the right hand side of the towers for Phoenix Racing Red, and he definitely has set the favourites pace. However, there's other names out there as well, including the return of none other than Quatermass Motorsport, and Quatermass Motorsport Bravo there, Andy Chell. Well, in the 1357 I rating slot, he'll be looking to go absolutely well, and he does have teammates alongside him, including Oliver Forstrom, and also we do see there some of the other teammates, albeit they will be in the Premier class and also in the Pro and Elite classes. We also have some other new names on the grid, including Matt Stace of Flatline Racing. Also, we do see there Michael Evangeli for Mission R, and we've also got Sammy Ariba for Mission R, but also some returning names. And Steve Rubino is also going to be one to watch out for Hobo Racing, in the fact that in Season 8, it was all mishaps and blunders when it came to strategy and setting up the car for the race, despite his absolutely sensational qualifying pace. And we got it right in the second half of the season, but it was too late then to make a big impression. But he'll be looking to make a big impression, much like favourite man Grant Miller. We also do have Rachel Hugh for Blue Sky Esports, who's new to the grid, and we look forward to seeing how she gets on. And we also do see that Andy Rooney, the privateer, on the grid as well. And well, our 29 Evo drivers will accompany our 31 Premier drivers, and we're very eager to see how they all perform starting tonight. But coming into this season then, well, there are some rule changes afoot, and we're not going to go through the entire rule set, just for the simple reason we would be here all evening dissecting it and walking you through, although some of you may be interested in it. So what we're going to do, instead, we're going to focus on the Season 9 rule changes, and here they are summarised quite succinctly. Drop scores for this season, they have been changed. The format now, round 10 cannot be dropped. The season finale is undroppable, and that means our drivers need to perform as best they can in each and every round. Each driver shall be forced, therefore, to drop their lowest score from between rounds 1 and 9. There's only one drop score, and it must be taken from within rounds 1 to 9. Dropped rounds, meanwhile, do not apply for the Teams Championship at all. Teams Championship is based on all points over the entirety of the season for the teams. Our qualifying sessions, they are now 20 minutes in length. They have gone from 15 minutes to 20 minutes, and drivers have gone from having 4 flying laps available to 10 flying laps available. Now, that is a big jump, and you may be sat there wondering, okay, what's warranted this? Well, with a new tyre and aero model, but particularly a new tyre model for these GT3 machines, our drivers now have to warm up the tyres progressively in qualifying sessions and in race sessions. And that means the era whereby an outlap and a single flying lap, so you have your tyres up to temperature, that no longer exists. Instead, now, it normally takes 3 to 4 flying laps to get the tyres in the optimum window, and then you can use the remainder of laps in order to try and deliver the ultimate lap. Some drivers, they've wondered whether it was the right call. Others, meanwhile, absolutely glad for this. We reckon it's a very good idea, because what it means is our drivers have got plenty of time to try and set the best possible qualifying laps, but also the fact that they have to go through that tyre warming phase, and well, the idea being behind it here, it's the drivers who can get the most out the tyre over the qualifying session who will be at the very front of the field. So a new dynamic in qualifying and plenty of time to try and set an absolutely brilliant lap. We also see the instant point limits. They have been dropped slightly from Season 8. Whereby in the sprint races now, we have 14 instants and it's a drive-through penalty, and at 18 it's a race disqualification. In the feature races, it's 18 for a drive-through penalty, 22 for a race disqualification. Our stewards are getting tighter on those instant points and also post-race stewarding, and therefore it's going to be even trickier for our drivers here, should they be a little bit naughty. But enough about rules regulation, let's come to our circuit for this season opener, and it is the Daytona Road Course, located near the city of Daytona Beach in Volusia County of the US state of Florida, 3.56 miles in length, 5.72 kilometers depending on your nomenclature, and 12 quarters. The main thing around here, it's all about strategy. You can be the fastest man in qualifying, but if you're not able to break the toe early on, then you'll be reeled in by the pack, and it becomes an absolutely strategic run all the way to the checker flag. And expect a lot of overtakes to be made here on the oval banking, where drivers swap back and forth. Also some bold movement under braking into the hairpins, particularly at turns 4 and 6, but also pit stops going to be critical. And those who can leap their way on strategy, they may run away to victory. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that's the scene set. Let's head back to circuit side then, and qualifying is underway here, and as qualifying does get underway, we have got the best part of 20 minutes. Albeit, we've already expended 3.5 minutes as our drivers are coming towards the end of their first flying lap, so they're going to take some time in order to get those laps underway. And we do say hello there to I believe that's RSCAC for Quartermass Motorsport. In fact, let me say that name correctly again. There's no R there. It is Quatermass. I'm going to get it wrong every so often. I'm sure some of you will correct me if I do get it wrong. But as we do see here, Danny Ware making his way on around through at turns 1, 2 and 3. Well, he gradually heads onwards there in the DXT Motorsports McLaren. New livery on the machine. A very nice livery at that as well. And we look forward to seeing what the Scotsman is able to achieve today. We also say hello there to Katie Kitty Eames, who says, let's go Verano and good luck to Craig Tillison. And here is Craig Tillison, the man who's moved from Premier to Evo for this season after a bit of a bruise in Season 8 in the Premier class, where he was running the Corvette Z06, where he's moved his way to the Acura NSX Evo 22, still branding the Verano Academy outfit, and as he rolls his way out to turn number 4, he definitely looks reasonably good at Okayama in the Acura, but still getting to grips with a car that is quite a fast machine at most circuits, albeit its aero model in the new iRacing aero era does seem to give it a lot of straight line speed on low downforce circuits, and the Acuras are expected, based on balance performance, to be very strong here at Daytona, but that's not to say they're going to be the ones who absolutely dominate the day. Indeed, anybody can dominate out there should they get it right and prove themselves to be the king on outright pace. And well, one thing we're definitely going to see this season is a huge amount of car variety. In fact, as I look down the roster, I think we have one of every single available GT3 in the modern era in iRacing on this grid, and that's fantastic to see. We've got quite a few BMW M4s, and well, the German marque soon to release their Evo package of the car that introduced its way to the 2022 GT3 grid, and upwards and onwards it has gone. Indeed, a very capable car in the hands of Team WRT, but in the simulator, well, one of them here right now in the hands of Liam Yaniso, as we do see the Belgian driver make his way through turn number 1, and well, yet to get a valid lap on the board, but he goes on to his first flying lap here, and we're starting to wind the time in as he makes his debut in the Premier class. Now, if you're wondering who's in Premier, who's in Evo, how can you tell? Well, on the time and tell, you'll notice some drivers have yellow sashes against their name, including Yaniso, albeit he's not listed on the time and tell yet because he's yet to set a valid lap. So let's look to the man who's just set the fastest lap for a brief moment, and that's the Audi R8 Evo Mark II LMS machine of Martin Kenyon. This is why your Premier drives, they have yellow sashes against their name in the timing tower. Meanwhile, those who've got grey sashes against their name, such as Grant Miller, the man to watch out for in Evo class as he roars his way around there in the Phoenix Racing McLaren 720S, they are your Evo drivers. So that's how you discern, and I believe as well there are some coloration differences on the door cards as well that you can keep an eye out for there, and the labels on the door cards. But if you want a quick and easy way to do it, it is on the timing tower. But as Miller makes his way on around here, well, he set a reasonable lap to open up the bank account, but Andy Rooney says, okay, hold on, I can go a little bit faster. Oh, goodness me, that is a very chrome car there, to be honest. I was wondering exactly what sunlight was going to be reflecting into my eyes looking out the commentator booth window, but that Acura definitely absolutely gleaming right now. And well, for Andy Rooney, definitely the privateer car, a very shiny car at that, and that's going to be getting quite a few sponsors wanting to put their names on the car in the near future, as it hasn't quite got any sponsors on it at the moment, but I'm sure they're looking for sponsors. And well, the number 23 flying high here in Evo, currently 6th place overall, as he comes down in towards turn number 6 for the second part of the International Circuit Infield, the International Horseshoe Mark II, with turn number 4 being the International Horseshoe as it's properly named. Well, Rooney right now rolling his way to turn number 7, and we're looking absolutely dialed in here. And again, we are expecting the Acuras to be quite fast over a single lap. However, all of our GT3 machines seem to be very close on pace coming into this season, and that's lovely to see. Last season, it really was the big conquest of the Acuras and the Porsche for the most part in the Premier class. On the Evo class, there was a little bit more car diversity. We did have a three-way fight in between a Ferrari 296 in the hand of Wesley Van Rens, the Acura NSX Evo 22 of Andrew Martin, and the Ford Mustang of Grant Miller. But we have seen a lot of drivers move away from the Ford Mustang, albeit one driver didn't get the memo, and he's made his way to the Ford Mustang. And here is the LS Racing driver of Pete Piver, and well, a little bit of a twitch there coming through the kink of turn number 5, albeit brings it together. The front engine rear-wheel drive American muscle machine with its Coyote 5-litre V8 engine. Well, right now he'll definitely be gunning that throttle as much as he can, and the one thing that you can always say about the Ford Mustang is no matter where it is out on circuit, you'll definitely hear it first before every other car. It is a very loud car, and if you ever get the chance to see why these are racing in real life, take that chance with open arms, ladies and gentlemen. So I can tell you one thing, you will get tinnitus listening to the Ford Mustang go around the circuit. I can tell you because I'm a tinnitus sufferer, but more importantly, you will never forget that distinctive grunt from this beastly machine, and right now Piver prancing his way down towards the bus stop chicane, and well, a long way down the order. He is currently in 41st place of our 49 entrants for this evening, but I can imagine he's still trying to get some tyre temperature. There's a very sensitive run for the bus stop chicane, and we're still trying to find a little bit more heat in those tyres. But as he comes on around, we are now starting to get to the point where the tyres are warming up nicely, and Robin Aston on his full flying lap. He's currently the provisional fastest driver out there overall in Premier, and he's back in the Carmate GP2 outfit, running in the Porsche 911 GT3 992 spec machine. And as he heads on down towards the bus stop chicane here, well, the Porsche is a very interesting car because it is the handling focused car of the GT3s. Porsche's mantra being rear engine, rear wheel drive, excluding, of course, the Porsche 911 RSR GTE, which was mid engine rear wheel drive in order to comply with the regulations. However, the GT3 machine still adheres to the rear engine rear wheel drive formula, whereby the engine, the 6-cylinder flat inline engine, it's mounted over the rear axle, and that gives the car the best cornering capabilities because naturally all the weight's concentrated right towards the rear of the machine, and the idea is as you rotate through the corner, you carry all the speed and you essentially corner by throttle is the saying, where as you bury the throttle, the rear plants itself down and get it right, and you will get on the traction faster than anybody else. Get it wrong, however, and you'll very quickly find yourself going all the way around and doing circles. But that's what we call oversteer. And right now, Robin Aston showing no signs of that as he heads onto his full flying lap. But as more and more drivers proceed to do so, well, very shortly we're going to be getting on board with one of our drivers. And in fact, I think we're going to be going on board with series organiser James Bostock as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Daytona International Speedway road course. So down into turn 1 he goes, and as he goes hard on the brakes, coming all the way down into the second gear, nicely into the opening corner, taking a little bit of grass there to hook the car around, and now flat out through turns 2 and 3. A small amount of apex curve at both there. You don't want to take any more than that because otherwise the tyres will get caught and the car will go onto the grass, and onto the brakes he goes for International Horseshoe Hairpin. Through turn 4, he rolls out second gear, then gets the throttle nicely down and smoothly onwards, and as he heads up towards the Kinker turn number 5, lets the car drift out to the right. This will open up the corner, but he'll be flat out all the way through left-hander here. Gentle steering input before bringing the car harshly over to left onto the brakes there. 125 meters to corner apex down to second gear, and now easing the throttle in, very late apex there, and now up towards turn number 7. Back over to the right, and here he's got now his braking point, using the start of the runoff area there to denote his brake marker. Nice and tight to the apex, and now throttle down, straighten the steering, go, go, go up onto the oval banking. You'll notice the slight rise in the road there as they come out of turn number 7. Expect a lot of drivers, particularly in front engine rear wheel drive machines, to have the rear of the car cut loose there if they haven't straightened the steering when they try to put the throttle down. It's the way the weight transfer occurs, and in front engine rear wheel drive in particular, it sends the car very quickly sideways. But for Bostock, no issues at all, and the man who stayed with his favourable Porsche heads into the bus stop chicane, braking there just before the one board, that denoting 100 yards, and down to third gear, through the right-hander there of turn at number 11, and now straight line all the way around there. A smooth run. Bostock perhaps could have been a bit more aggressive, but I suspect he's got a lot of fuel in the car at the moment. He's going to gradually burn that fuel out, starting with this 5th line lap, and as he heads around towards the timeline, well, now it's just easy, keep it nice and low towards the yellow. They're not allowed to go below the yellow line under qualifying conditions unless they're coming into the pit lane, and under race conditions they can only go below it by exception, not the norm. They're not allowed to overtake down there unless they're forced down there. But coming across that timeline, what's it going to be for Bostock? He was 31st and up to 12th place. A lovely lap there from James Bostock, and a brilliant demonstration with 44.822 of how you drive around Daytona's road course. But still, he's got a bit more time to go as we are into the final 8 minutes very shortly of this qualifying session, and we are starting to get towards the pinch point of the session, albeit as our drivers continue to make the one through. Let's look at those class positions then in qualifying. And well, there's so many drivers out there, that absolutely runs off screen. But at least what we can see is, in terms of the Premier and overall, it is Robin Aston is the fastest man out there right now for Carmate GP2 Porsche. And well, Matej Smolny only 6.5 hundredths off him there, less than a tenth. It's very tight, and Smolny was a driver who did very well at the Okayama pre-season event. And well, when we say very well, it was the situation whereby he took second place early on in race number 1 of our 2 sprint races from Stuart Rice, and picked up the win after Menno Blom, who was running away with proceedings, had a late spin by driving just a little bit too much beyond what the car could handle, and therefore Smolny just picked up the win, and also had a great race number 2. He gradually made his way through the field. However, in the Premier class, the win in race number 2, well, that went to Mark de Vries, another Porsche driver there. There's a bit of a running theme here, which is Porsches were running rampant at Okayama compared to some of their rivals, albeit not by much. In the Premier class they definitely did, and the sim racing team Lowlands driver had a well-managed race from pole position after the top 15 inversion, but he did have Stuart Rice and also Menno Blom close on his heels in the late stages of the race, But we talked a lot about Premier. What about in Evo? Well, in the Evo class, there were definitely some stories out there, and the Mercedes-AMG Evo driver here today for Mission R, once again, Jonathan Berry, he absolutely dominated in qualifying in the Evo class at Okayama, and he went on to dominate the race in race number 1. No mistakes, and was kept slightly honest by Jordan Maymar at a distance, but Maymar was not able to match him at all. And speaking of Jordan Maymar, he's here today in the Ferrari 296 and racing as part of the Simcast Racing UK outfit, and we're very happy to see him back out there again. In race number 2, where it was Jordan Maymar who took victory because there was an early incident for Jonathan Berry, and it meant that for Maymar all he had to do was hold on to lead and not lose it, and he did exactly that given the way the grid had lined up. And if Berry dropped it, well, it was Maymar's to lose, and in the end he didn't lose it, he won it, and that was the story of Evo. But as we said, there were plenty of big stories to talk about up and down the field across both classes. Grant Miller was a very big one in the field in Evo just because of the choice of the McLaren, and whilst he wasn't the fastest outright, he was definitely very strong on race pace and qualifying pace. He just needed to fine-tune a little bit. But we heard the story from Season 8 about Grant Miller, which he said qualifying was his biggest weakness over the course of Season 8. It's one thing he's worked on very hard in the downtime, and also the switch to the McLaren, and the two going in hand right now. And look at where he is currently in Evo class, only a 10th off a pole sitter Steve Rubino in the BMW M4, but this McLaren right now has got gas and it is going for gold. But he comes across that timeline. Does he improve? No, he does not. And, well, are there other stories there to consider in Evo? Well, a little bit of a surprise, but a good surprise. We do see there Barry Wenman currently in 4th place in Evo and 15th overall as we change to the overall time and tail there on the left-hand side of your screen. And Wenman right now dropping down to 16th. He's demoted down with Pontier moving up into 12th. But the point is, when I spoke to Barry in the build-up to this season, he was saying to me that fact he absolutely loved going racing at Okayama, really enjoyed the pre-season event, and it's given them the confidence and, well, indeed the excitement factor to try and push a little bit harder. And I definitely think we're going to be seeing him push even harder today. And what is he going to be able to do? That's going to be the challenge. But then again, well, he does love a good challenge. Also, Thiago Ariza, who we did not see on the grid at Okayama. He wasn't there for the pre-season event. It wasn't mandatory attendance, to be fair. There were no points to be scored. It was all about just enjoying a pre-season race setting. Indeed, the opportunity to race in anger before it actually matters for points and really get a feel for race evenings, particularly sprint evenings. And Riser right now doing very good in that BMW M4, currently 18th overall, and off of Wenman only by the best part there, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, of 3 tenths. And in fact, Dean Sheesby and Wenman sharing exactly the same lap time for 16th, but Wenman set it first, so therefore he has the right to take the place over Sheesby. And well, going from one BMW driver to another and going from Evo to Premier, we see here Sheesby roaring his way around, and as he comes on around there in the MRC, the Moonshiners Racing Club car, I can tell you one thing, he's one of the big favourites in terms of friends on the grid of every driver out there. Very nice driver off the circuit, but a very smart and hard racer on the circuit. And well, 17th place start right now, 13th in Premier. Won't be what he wanted to kick off the season, but he'll be aware of the fact, like many, that this Daytona race is a very different one because of the fact you can't really run away from your rivals. You have to pack race unless there's a huge break in the pack. But we're not expecting any breaks in the pack, or at least not anytime soon. And with 3.5 minutes to go, well, it does seem as though right now things are starting to fall a little bit silent in terms of progress. Although I say that, Robin Pelnier in the Corvette Z06, he suddenly leapfrogs his way all the way up to 8th. That's 7th in Premier class, leaving it late in the day. But we do currently have, if my mathematics is correct, and I've got enough fingers to count, I believe that is 6 different manufacturers inside the top 10. It may be 7, in fact. That's a Porsche, an Audi. We've also got McLaren, Ferrari, so that makes it 4, BMW 5, Corvette 6. So we have got 6 different manufacturers inside that top 10. Car variety is absolutely brimming here. And right now, Pelnier really pushing this Corvette forward, a car that really struggled on the grid in Season 8. And those who selected it, well, they gave it everything as Pelnier decides to park up. So that's qualifying complete for him. He's not going any further. And Martin Kenyon, there were no Audis on the grid last season, but we got to see some grids. Well, we've seen some Audis so far, and Kenyon being the leading Audi out there. In fact, he is the only Audi in participation, at least on this grid, but we are missing 11 drivers, so you never know. We could see an Audi a little bit later on in the season. But Kenyon right now, 3rd overall, and in a car as well that's normally associated with Corning Prowess, but that V10 engine, an engine that's gradually being made extinct in the modern era of motorsport, well, right now it's definitely living on here and living on proud. And Audi deciding to forego manufacturer racing teams in GT3 Racing as of a couple of years ago, but constantly supporting customer teams, and none more than Santalot Racing. And we'll see here whether Kenyon is able to pull off a blind blinder right at the end. With 2 minutes left on the clock, he'll have this lap, and he may, I say may, I don't think he's going to squeeze in another one here. I think he's going to run out of time, because remember, when we hit the 20-minute part of the clock, or the timer says 0 in the top left corner of your screen, that's it on qualifying. They do not get overtime to finish any more laps, and therefore it does mean for Kenyon right now he won't get any more as Aston sets the new pole lap at 43.806. Kenyon in the end cross the line, it's not enough, and that will be Kenyon's opportunity to take pole position gone. But Robin Aston right now, he is the only driver out there to have set a 43. It's a 43.81 to the nearest 100th. That's an incredible lap from Robin Aston, and could he be the one who right now is setting the definitive pace in the racing scene? Well, we'll have to see, because of course qualifying is just one part of the story. But are there any other improvements to be made? Well, a few drivers are out there. We do have Charlie Stoffard as he makes his way across the bus stop chicane, then decides to do a little bit of manoeuvring, and now up into the Premier class for this season. Haven't been in Evo last season, but there he decides to park on up. He won't be going anywhere else. Danny Ware there looking quite low, down in 32nd, and right behind Owen Seward, I believe his teammate. And well, Seward rolling on out there. Oh no, that's going to go very sideways there, coming out to turn number 7 for Seward, and that's not going to be a happy moment at all. That's going to be a tow to the pits very quickly when he gets the car reset. In fact, he's going to carry on, but I think right now he'll know that's his qualifying done and dusted. We've got Sean Clark out there. He's all the way down in 37th place at this time, currently in 14th in the Evo class. And oh no, it's all gone loose down the rear end and straight into the tyre barrier, and well, that is an absolutely deadening shunt there, and Clark's qualifying session will be over. He won't be going any further, so a big mistake there. But are there any big surprises in this qualifying session? Well, actually a huge surprise. Matthew Hunter, 47th. 22nd place in Evo. Well, that's not been a strong qualifying session. We did see him a little bit further up the order where Okayama last time out. This circuit not perhaps suiting him. Also, Stuart Rice in the Lamborghini Huracan. He's going to come to line. He's 24th. Does he squeeze his way up the road in time? No, he doesn't. Lamborghini Huracan driver stays there. That's qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to head to the grid for our first race of the season. So our drivers make their way to the grid, and this is how they'll line up then for the season open, the 60-minute feature race, and none other than Daytona International Speedway for Split B's ESR GT3 Championship Season 9, powered by Trophy AI and brought to you on iRacing. Robin Aston takes maiden pole position of the season for Car Made GP2 Racing, joined on the front row of the grid by Mission R Esports' Mateus Smolny. Martin Kenyon lines up in third for the Axis SimSport Ice team ahead of Car Made GP2 Racing Scott Kostridge. Then from the Scotsman, it'll be fellow Scotsman who takes pole position in the Evo class. Well done to him. That McLaren definitely suited him. Grant Miller there for Phoenix Racing Red. He'll be joined on the third row of the grid by Luke Bailey for Glass Tech Racing. And then second place in Evo class, starting 7th on the grid, it is going to be none other than Tiago Reza for the Brazilian outfit there, and the 9 Pegasus Pantera driver looking to move forward. Adam Baker starts 8th for LS Racing, and then it will be completing the top 10 Andrew Montine, the Romanian driver for Axis SimSport Ice, and he'll be in the company of third place Evo driver Steve Rubino for Hobo Racing. Then 11th on the grid, best of the rest, Robin Pownier for SimCoach ahead of Car Made GP2 Racing's James Bostock, with row number 7 going to the combination of Rob Smith for Flatline Racing and Jordan Maymar for Simcast Racing Team UK. Mark De Vries starts 15th for Sim Racing Team Lowlands ahead of Mark Johnson, and then from the Dutchman and the Englishman, and particularly Englishman for Axis SimSport Ice, we'll see fellow Englishman John Ludbrook, who starts 17th for Car Made GP2 Racing. 18th goes the way of Barry Wenman for Dexterous Motorsports Zem, I should say. And then we do have Dean Sheesby for Moonshiners Racing Club ahead of Andrew Fellows, who completes your top 20 for Flatline Racing. Outside the top 20, there's plenty more cars, and we do have Jonathan Berry starting 21st for Mission R powered by Mao. Then we do have alongside him Hussein Sakurdesla and the Summer GP2 racing driver from Turkey, having a difficult qualifying session, but knowing there's plenty to do in the race. The same there for Andy Chell for Quatermass Motorsport, and the Bravo trial then be joined by Stuart Rice for Blue Sky Esports, with Andy Rooney starting 25th for Privateer ahead of Rhino Academy's Craig Tillerson. Simon Hunt begins his day 27th for Quatermass Motorsport, and then we will have Ross Norsworthy for Simcast Racing Team UK. Completing your top 30, it's going to be Robert Savage for Mission R ahead of Charlie Stoffard for Phoenix Racing Red. 31st goes the way of Owen Seward there for DXT Motorsports by ORA ahead of Dexterous Motorsports Zem's Danny Vere. And then we do have Philip McConaughey for Racing League Hub 33rd ahead of Oliver Forstrom for Okayama Motorsport. Behind the Swede, it's the Brazilian Pete Piver for LS Racing B, ahead of Rob McKee for Dexterous Motorsport Zem. And then on the 19th row of the grid, it will be the combination of Sean Clark for Dexterous Motorsport Zem, ahead of Denny Plurger, the Dutchman for MJK Sim Racing. Completing your top 40, it'll be Samuel Clark, the privateer, ahead of fellow privateer Liam Yaniso. And then rounding off that starting order, 41st will be James Pellett for Racing League Hub, ahead of Eddie Theobald, with Matt Stace there starting 43rd, ahead of Alex Boniface. And then we do have Sammy Arriba for Mission R, 45th on the grid, ahead of Daniel Paul, with Matthew Hunter and Rachel Hugh completing your final full row of the grid, 47th and 48th. And Austin Graff, last but not least there for Axis Simsport Ice, starts 49th, no valid lap set. He's got it all to do from the very back of the field. Well, the field is set, ladies and gentlemen, and we are not too far away from going green flag racing. The pace car pulls away, but they can't go until it goes green, and it is going to be to Robin Aston to take us racing, and there we go. As soon as the lights go green, it's Aston's to take to the lead, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, well, Aston gets a brilliant start. They're catching everybody out as Matej Simoni under pressure, and none other than Martin Kenyon, but Kenyon now being passed on the outside there by none other than Scott Kostrich, but Kostrich has to back out, but roaring the way down towards turn number 3. All the field safe on for at least the top 20. A couple more cars making their way on around here through turns 2 and 3. It is going to be 2 and 3 wide. That's Norsbury versus Piver heading on down towards the horseshoe hairpin. And well, we do have all the field through. Simon Hunt, Andy Rooney, Jonathan Berry, and Andy Chell all starting from the pit lane and deciding to play it safe. But I think there's safety concerns. They'll have to make up the pace a bit later on. Oh, goodness me, we had somebody go round. That's Martin Kenyon, who's had a big spin. What on earth's happened to Kenyon? I'm not quite sure. We'll have to get a replay of that because he's been ejected from 3rd place. He's all the way down the order. And well, as everybody makes their way through. Oh, no, it's a spin. Kostrich goes round. He catches it just in time. But as he does so, he's going to lose all the places as we've got a couple more cars. Then when he jumps those, another one's the grass there. I'm trying to see who that is. Is that Wenman? I think it is. Barry Wenman may have gone around. I'm not 100% sure on that. Don't quote me. In fact, it's not Wenman. We'll get you an update on that when we can. But as Kostrich here folds his way back into the running order, we also had an incident for Sarka Dessler. He's fallen off at turn number 7. And now as everyone starts to calm down, well, cold tyres are definitely catching out so many drivers here in this opening race. And we saw that at Okayama, the fact that cold tyres were catching drivers out in the opening 3 laps. And we even had some incidents later on where drivers were getting it wrong, but right now those who are getting it right are able to carry on. We've also lost Robin Aston in all of this. I'm not quite sure where Aston's gone, but I believe we've lost him at the bus stop chicane. That's a bit of a connectivity issue because he was leading, and Sonny's going to be demoted all the way to the back of the field for a technical issue, and that's a surprise and not a welcome one to be certain. But where there's drama, there's also drivers who've been able to stay clear of the drama, and one who's gained 13 places so far is Philip McConaughey, and we can see him there in the yellow and white Ferrari as the 6th place Evo driver continues to make some progress here. He'll be chasing after Stuart Rice, albeit Kostrich on his inside, and the Ferrari gradually getting overspeed temporarily. And of course, having to go high and around the outside, that's going to make things hard. But speaking of things hard, that's 3 wide there. And Mark De Vries siphoned his way between Rob Smith and Andrew Fellows. We've got a car around, and who's that? Who tries to get off the race line? Oh no, it's all gone wrong. It's gone very, very wrong, and that's going to have a domino effect there, as we'll see Ross Norsworth and James Pallett end up going around. But who was that who gone for the spin initially? I believe Philip McConaughey also getting caught up in that. Couldn't quite discern who the Porsche was, but they're all coming back together. But a nightmare moment there, and we can understand the car that was stricken turned around. The Porsche was trying to get off racing line, and in the end, one driver was taking an evasive manoeuvre to the inside. Well, the two miscommunicated, and then everything else happened afterwards. Rob McKee, as a result, then moved his way up into 24th place. As a result of all the drama, he's made up a lot of places. We've got a bumper flying around there. I'm not quite sure whose that is. That's going to go on a lost property board after the racing. And well, as we see them making their way out of turn number 6, well, we'll get some stability here on lap number 2. It's anything but that. It does seem as though everything's going crazy. And from a race leader having to tow to the pits from the lead due to a connectivity issue, all the way through now to drivers losing it left, right, and centre further down the order. Well, Daytona definitely being the differentiator between drivers early on, and the new tyre model and aero model catch out a number of drivers as they're trying to get the cars nicely warmed up. But as we get some stability for a brief moment, this is Fellows versus Montine, and Montine in the tow then, the Acura. Looks to the inside, can't quite find it at the moment. But instead looking for an opportunity then to stay behind the two McLarens of Smith and Fellows, the two teammates there who will gradually pull them along, and it'll be the craft in the draft, and well, it's going to be one goes high, one goes low, and Montine in the end decides to look at the middle as Mark De Vries makes his way onwards. But that is a lap down car there, unless I'm very much mistaken, that Porsche. And is that the car of Andy Chell that started from the pit lane? Yes, it is. So Chell there with the technical issues. Well, he's making his way onwards right now, but down they come towards turn number 1, but he's a long way back, and he's got a lot of work to do because he is a lap off the leaders, if not multiple laps off at this point, in fact. But as we turn on to lap number 3, there's still more fighting to come, and Will Montine holding on there. James Pallet, meanwhile, battling side by side with Owen Seward. Seward minus a front bumper on that McLaren 720S, and Pallet will be past there in the Racing League Hub Ferrari, a very distinctive red liveried machine. And well, the distinctive liveries are the ones that catch the cameraman's eye, no doubt about it. He's going to go all the way out the inside there. That is a very aggressive move into the hairpin. That's saying to Seward, look, I get it. You want to go hunting after Samuel Clark, who's a bit up the road, but I've kind of got aspirations to chase after Piver of my own. And when you see Pete Piver there in the very luminescent blue Ford Mustang pulling away as they go too wide for the king, and in the end Pallet squeezes Seward a little bit, really trying to send a message there, but fairly trying to send the message to Owen Seward, which is stop fighting me. But Seward does not want this man right behind him right now, and that is Owen Seward. And well, it's not going to be Owen Seward. In fact, that's Oliver Forstrom. Get my names mixed up. And Forstrom right now in the Lamborghini Huracan, who we ride on board with. Well, he's running in a very happy at the moment, 7th place in the Evo class. And whilst they power the way on through at turn 7 up onto the banking, Forstrom looks one way, then he looks the other. But of course, all this weaving on the oval banking, that will cost them time, because it will increase the amount of time they spend up on the banking, and that should be longer you spend getting to your destination, which is the bus stop chicane. Well, the standard rule of thumb is that the shortest distance between A and B is in a straight line, and right now when you're not going straight around there, you are increasing your time taken. But Forstrom here looking to get a good run, goes a little bit deep. Harry catches the car, but that's going to cost him a little bit of speed. He wanted a bit more momentum. It's not going to quite work out, but the flip side of the coin is he is pulling away from the likes of McKee and also Theobald, who are further back. Well, that does give Forstrom an opportunity here to start to open up a bit more of a distance. New fastest lap overall the race there. That's why you see the Evo tries now on top on the time and tower, and that was set by none other than Diego Reza at 45.102. But I wouldn't be surprised if we are going to see those fastest laps gradually come on down, given the fact that our drivers are running on high fuel tanks at the moment. They will need to come into the pits at some point to refuel over the 60 minutes, but as the cars get lighter, the tyres have got a lot more life in them as well now. It means that they will be able to deliver better and better laps. Fighting further up the road in Evo, this is the fight for third. It's Jordan Maymar trying to get back ahead of Steve Rubino as the Hobo Racing BMW there in its very glorious yellow and red coloration. Well, they've got Mark Johnson and Sheesby behind, but Rubino definitely being passed. And as they come through the second hairpin, well, you can see Sheesby looking around the outside of Johnson there, but it's only one way. It's to the grass if he goes all the way round, so he decides to back off and tuck back in. And well, these two of Rubino and Maymar, they're staying together right now. Maymar goes a little bit deep. He can get away with that, but of course, with the fact that Rubino there in the BMW is a car that accelerates up to top speed a little bit faster than the Ferrari. The Ferrari does have a lot of top end speed, but it takes an eternity to get there. And they're side by side here heading onto the banking, and now it's going to be the question of who's going to arrive to the bus stop chicane first. Well, Rubino on the low line on the inside, who had the confidence here he might have the opportunity, with that backing out there a little bit, and it looks as though the Ferrari finally growing legs, and Maymar gets back ahead for a brief moment, but Rubino will be back in the tow, and therefore he can save some fuel, and also he can put some more pressure on Maymar to burn fuel conversely. Looking up to the top two, well, we do look to second place runner here, Luke Bailey. He's in the company of Adam Baker, who's going high. So this is the fight for second, with the third place man on the outside there in the Porsche 992. And, well, Baker trying to go all the way around the outside here, as Smolny 3 seconds up the road. He's gradually absconding with the lead in the Premier class and overall. Smolny sets the fastest lap of class at 45.231. And then James Bostock sets the fastest lap overall and puts Premier back on top there in terms of fastest lap times on 44.969. So Bostock is starting to go some, and there you can see James Bostock a little bit further back, tucked in behind Diego Reza and Grant Miller as the leaders of the Evo class, separate Bostock from third and second in Premier. But as Miller there getting a bit close to the back of Reza, well, at this point he'll just be watching. I don't think he'll be very eager to try and make a move, because at the end of the day it's a long race and every penny of fuel he saved is absolutely precious. But right now Miller definitely trying to see where he's stronger, as that's going to be Adam Baker going to the inside there. And well, Baker, I think in the end perhaps carrying a bit too much speed behind his rival and having to tuck back into the inside line before tapping him on the rear. And Bailey seeing it coming, opened up the door a little bit, and I think that might have just been a small error from Baker, as here comes Razor right up the inside of him and says, no, I'm taking this over now. And well, that caught Adam Baker by surprise, and Diego Reza right now absolutely eager here to try and move forward. What he wants to do is try and break away from Miller behind, and these two started to fight. Now, we know this BMW is quick on the banking compared to the Porsche, albeit then again, we have seen Porsches go very quick around here on a single lap, so much so they've set pole position. So what do we know about top speed? But what we do know here, look at the body language of our BMW driver Fraser. He is really trying to get a message through to Baker, which is, I'm taking this place, even if I have to pin you slightly to the wall. You could see how he tried to come over a little bit, was aware of the fact that Baker's there, but trying to send a message which is, look, back out. I want the race in line, and Baker doing so. And, well, I think the Evo driver here, he's really barreling forwards in this race, but he's got to be careful for the simple reason if he really pushes this hard early on, unless he's got the confidence and he thinks the pace is enough to just charge off into the distance from Miller, he might in the end use up a lot of fuel and use up a lot of time as Baker goes low there. And in doing so, I wonder if he's got an issue with the car that he's perhaps trying to sort out. Oh, that's a bit of a snake train there, as we do see Luke Bailey snapping under braking. He gets under control, has to use the runoff area there to survive turn one, but at high speed he's not too happy there, flashing the lights versus Reza. And I think he feels as though there's a bit of contact coming on down. The fact he was made to go to a very dirty outside line, but either way right now the second place Premier driver definitely being elbowed out, the leader of the Evo class, and here Reza making a great impression early on. Heading in towards the kink and then towards turn number 6. Well, these drivers still together at this time as they head down towards the braking zone of the second hairpin. Further on back, we do have Robin Palnier and John Ludbrook. And Ludbrook, who started all the way down in 17th place, he's gradually making some progress as we look back to your overall positions. The top 42 on your timing tower. And as they roar the way on around there, well, Ludbrook falling back a little bit as they come upwards. But you see Palnier there not being as aggressive to make his way over to the racing line for turn number 7. And the Corvette driver there really taking his time. And I wonder whether he's deciding to really protect those tyres, because there is also the big question, do you even change tyres in the pits anymore for a 60-minute race? And well, some drivers will be considering it because tyres get changed at the same time as fuel is put in the car, albeit they won't necessarily have enough time to put an entire set of tyres on with the amount of fuel they'll take, as I understand it. However, changing 2 tyres, particularly 2 tyres on one side of the car, may be valuable, albeit it'll be down to the driver's preference, because there's no expectation to change tyres. All they need to do is take the fuel that gets them to the end of the race. But there's been an incident, and that is Theo Reza, who's had it go wrong at the bus stop chicane, and well, he's dropped from the lead of the Evo class, and we were saying only moments ago, with his urgency to move into lead of Evo and run away with it, it was like going to come back to bite him, and it seems to have had to. But the question is, what exactly happened to him? Well, I think for all that, we need to get some replays of what happened at the start of the race, ladies and gentlemen. And in fact, we can get a replay, and we're going to start off with what happened to Martin Kenyon. Here's the green flag replay. So we come all the way back to the start then. Remember, this was your man who started in 3rd place, Martin Kenyon, as he got underway. Now, as the pace car pulled away, very quickly we went green flag racing there, and it was Aston who decided to go practically on the green rather than 1 second after it. And as they made their way down towards turn number 1, well, the baton there between the 2 drivers, the Mission R car, Smolny holding the outside, and we did see a bit of a movement made by the 101 looking around, albeit Kenyon in the end in a safe spot. Through turns 2 and 3 they went. Did it go wrong for Kenyon here? Yes, it did! And a very early mistake, an easy one to make, taking too much curve at turn number 3, and Kenyon's race into the barrier before it really got going. And that's why he lost all the places there, and understandably, that'll be a frustrating one. We then come to what happened to Robert Savage at the start of the race. This was down into, I believe, turn number 6. Battling side by side there. A little bit of elbows out between himself and one of his rivals, and in the end, we saw him eject himself onto the grass, and that would have been cold tyres trying to get the power down. We then also had this happen to Hussein Sarkadesla, the Turkish driver here, looking one way then the other, under braking in towards turn number 7, and in the Acura for Suma GP2, just went round there, went one way, you could see it started to go left, he turned it to the right, and in the end oversnapped the car, and well, into the barrier, and a nightmare moment for him, and well, that was his race, and having to very quickly toe to the pits. We then had on lap number 2, this for Barry at Wenman, and well, the number 56 driver was making his way down towards turn number 1, onto the brakes there. Goes a little bit deep, the car looks alright, and then it snaps around. This was the instant where we saw him in the middle of the road, and at this point he's thinking, okay, I need to get off the road. Unfortunately, at that point he gets tapped, cars to the right and go around their own volition, and Wenman turned on his roof. There's Craig Tillotson came into the scene in the instant, a nightmare moment, and well, to give you an idea of what that looked like from Craig Tillotson's perspective, we ride on board here. Now, he won't know that Wenman's gone round at this point, but what he'll start to see is look at how the field, suddenly everyone starts to part the ways, and Tillotson in the end doesn't see the Porsche until it's too late, sends the Porsche its way into its roof, and Tillotson with front end damage, that will have ended his race quite prematurely for at least what was the man who went round, but for Tillotson, I think, trying to fight on as best he could. We also had this happen to Matthew Hunter on lap number 2. We're going to carry on with a couple more replays, and this was Hunter for Simcast Racing Team UK, and well, he lost it there, his own volition coming on through the kink. And then what happened a bit later for none other than our driver of Thiago Reza, who was at the time leading the Evo class. Well, this was on lap number 6. This was only moments ago when we started the replays. He was in 2nd place overall. The 93 comes into the chicane. I get the feeling this is going to step out on him. Let's see. Yep, the rear started to go there. You could see too much speed on turning, and by then he's just literally a passenger in the car, straight into the barrier, and as I understand it, drove the car to the pit lane for repair work. So that's a recap of all the major incidents from the opening 14 minutes of racing, and we've still got plenty more minutes of racing to come, ladies and gentlemen. You can count on that. And as we continue to make our way deeper and deeper into race distance, well, let's look at some stories further on down the order. And, well, Martin Kenyon there in the Audi R8 Evo Mark II, trying to take on Matthew Hunter, and the Premier driver here very eager to make an impression on the Evo driver. And a little bit of a tidbit regarding this Audi R8 Evo 2. Oh, in fact, hold the tidbit in the trivia. He looks around the outside there, gets very close to Hunter, and in the end, well, I think Matthew Hunter not knowing which way Kenyon was going to go until you look to the outside, and Kenyon here very eager to make some progress. A bit too eager as the car goes round again, and for Kenyon, that's going to be so frustrating. It's all going from good to bad to disastrous here in this race, and right now you got to feel for him. He just wants to move forward, but this Audi definitely biting back. And what I was going to say about this Audi is a very oversteer sensitive car in general, and even with the Evo 2 model, that is what Audi tried to fix by upgrading it to an Evo 2, particularly at medium speeds, but they're being caught out again. But coming up the order then to the battle here for 19th place, this is Rob Mackay versus Eddie Theobald, and Theobald there in the BMW trying to go around the outside, the Evo driver versus the Premier driver of Mackay, and Mackay in the end defending to the inside, and a very smooth defence, and now onwards he'll go in towards the hairpin. I think at this point, with 15 minutes in, we fancy his chances to chase down Pete Piver, who is only a further 2 seconds up the road as their battle does calm down for a brief moment. But of course, with Thiago Reza having that incident at the bus stop chicane, it means now that your leading Evo driver, albeit he's getting very elbows out there of Adam Baker, is Grant Miller. And I think Grant Miller at that point really just wanted to go win. I think Baker saying, look, I had this done to me by Reza, I'm not going to have it done to me by another Evo driver. And Miller being told to wait his turn as he comes onto the banking. But definitely right now, our leading Evo drivers, I don't know what they've had for breakfast or dinner, but they are definitely getting very, very feisty versus the Premier drivers. And something tells me they might be very eager to try and make an impression. But with regards to what happened to Robin Aston at the start, we have been informed, ladies and gentlemen, that unfortunately he did have a technical issue with his computer, and that's what's cost him the race, as that is Adam Baker is having a car issue, and that's the tow to the pits immediately, and Adam Baker into the barrier there, coming out of the bus stop chicane, and well, the bus stop chicane claims another victim. But what we're going to say about Robin Aston is that he had a technical issue, and that caused him to suddenly retire from the race, and well, unfortunately, now Adam Baker experiencing a very different kind of issue, coming from the bus stop chicane, and his race coming to an abrupt halt. But still more to go. We look back here to Mark De Vries, who's been chased by Andrew Montine, and these two Premier drivers, they're looking for 7th place in class. They've got Steve Rubino and Robert Pernier right in front, and as they come down in towards turn number 1, well, right now Pernier, the Corvette driver here, are really trying to lead the pack, albeit Rubino there takes a lot of curve at turn number 3. That is very risky, even in the BMW, but they are almost going to go free ride there. But Pernier goes defensive, Rubino goes deep, and coming out of horseshoe hairpin, that is now going to bring Montine an opportunity to try and go side by side, albeit I think here, being on the outside of the King, he's going to have to be brave and immediately backs off there. He knows he doesn't want to go for it. He has not got the confidence in the car as he comes through the left-hander, and well, Andrew Montine being safe and smart there and deciding, okay, I may not have been able to get through it unlike De Vries, but I'm still right in the pack, this quartet, and I can stay with it. And good timing as well, because Rob Smith and Andrew Fellows are catching up to this, and they're getting ready to do some battle as well. And suddenly the fight for 6th place in the Premier class has 5 Premier drivers plus 1 Evo driver all squabbling over it, or in other words, it's the fight now for 8th place overall. From them, only a second up the road, is Jordan Maymar, who carries on his way for Simcast Racing UK, the UK Premier podcast. And as he heads down the back straight here, well, right now, doing a very solid job, a very lonely job in 2nd place in Evo. However, he'd love to get close to Grant Miller, but Miller is the best part of 4 seconds up the road, and understandably, that is going to be some time away. Now, we do say hello there to Sakuria 566, who's cheering on Clark with an E, that is, rather than Clark minus an E. And well, that means we do need to take a look at Samuel Clark, and here he is running in 4th place at the moment in Evo class. He's gained the best part of 24 places since the start of this race. Yes, I'm stating that correctly, from 39th of the grid up to 15th overall, and he's gained 12 places in the Evo class from a 16th place start all the way up to 4th. And really, he has been one of those drivers who's just avoided all the drama and all the danger, and is doing an absolutely brilliant job. As I look at my commentary booth window, I can tell you that Adam Baker's just left the pit lane after extensive repair work to the car. There are 2 fast repairs available as well now as of this season. That is a new rule update for this season. Rather than 1 fast repair, it's 2, and that gives our drivers an extra opportunity to get their cars back together, and gutted if they have a nasty incident, and all have been to accommodate the tyre model changes and the fact they have been catching drivers out quite easily, and we've seen plenty of drivers get it wrong so far, and therefore a bit of a grace period being offered to drivers here with the opportunity to go racing even more. But speaking of going racing there, Eddie Theobald looking around the outside in the BMW versus Kostrich. It's car made GP2 McLaren, and well, Kostrich there making a move on Mackay, and Mackay a bit slow. It's two McLarens into the kink. They'll both decide to run for it here, but you can see Mackay holding the position for now, but Kostrich still on the inside there, and on to the brakes they both go. It's the battle of the Scotsman, and well, as we do see there, a little bit of guest appearance of Mark De Vries, who we'll talk about a bit more in a moment as he rejoins from the grass to the runoff area, where it's still going to be too wide for Kostrich and Mackay in towards turn 7. This is brilliant racing. They're going to fight to the apex as they come around, and Theobald is watching this and thinking, can I get involved too? And immediately you can see Mackay there goes low and says to the BMW driver, no, you just wait, as they make the way onto the banking, and now Theobald will be definitely in the tow, and I think he'll be feeling as though this could be a grand opportunity, but you ride on board here with the BMW that's going to pick up a huge amount of speed in this draft. In fact, you can see Kostrich on the outside, he's already disappeared out of this battle. Theobald's so close here, he's going to think about that move. He'll have to try and go on the inside, but he has got Kostrich on his outside, taps the rear on the McLaren in front, but they survive it. Too wide they come in towards the chicane. I think they're going to go too wide out of it. Yes, they are, as it is going to be Kostrich there, who in the end follows him all the way through. It's absolutely fantastic racing between them, but look at Mark De Vries. After his spin at turn number 6, he's now back in this as well. He's going to try and go round the outside up on high, and this is going to be a fight for 19th place between him and Theobald as they head down towards the timing line, or should I say up towards it. But it's absolutely brilliant racing, and Rob Mackay right now doing everything to hold on. As we can also see there, that is going to be your 108 that's multiple laps down in 43rd place. That's Hussein Sakadesla, who's also trying to get involved here, but he's going to go deep and being a lap down, and he's going to have to wait his turn. But roaring the way through that left-hander and up towards the turn number 4 they go. Well, no change between them at the moment, but there's still plenty more to come, or at least we guess that, as a bit further back, Simon Hunt versus Matthew Hunter. Well, the Quatermass esports driver, he's looking up high here, and well, Hunter just putting away in that Ferrari as they head onto their next lap of racing. Now, the question being asked there by Sakura566, is there a live timing somewhere on a separate site? Let's see if we can get you the live timings there. Give us a brief moment. We might be able to offer you those live timings, although if we can't, we do apologise there. And in fact, we will investigate that and see what we can do for you in due course, as we do see there Hunt going back up the inside of Hunter, and that might be a little bit of a change. But between them for overall position, let's go all the way back to the front of the field, and let's not forget Mateusz Smolny as he continues on his way and will absolutely lead in this one right now, and looking very happy indeed out there as he just carries on. It's 8 seconds clear of this man, Luke Bailey, and looking to be absolutely in control at least for this time. But as the drivers head on around, well, good news, ladies and gentlemen, if you do want to follow with your own live timings, we do have the live timings available. We've been able to get them all set up and made publicly available. Do try the link that we just posted in the YouTube chat, and we'll do let us know if those are working for you. You may need to do a bit of filtering on them to see the data that you want to see, though it should be the full set of live timings for going racing here at Daytona today. If you want to stay up to date with the timings of specific drivers over the distance, or keep track of certain battles. But as battles carry on, we do see Mark Johnson, who's made a lot of ground. He's gained 10 places since the start, and we're coming down in towards turn number 4. The Axis Sims for Ice driver right now, they're really putting things on fire here as he roars his way around. And what he does have in front of him, Dean Sheesby up by 1 second, the Moonshine's Racing Club driver, pushing onwards, as we do see a Mark Johnson fan there in the YouTube chat in the form of Stephen Codman. And good evening to you, Stephen. I hope you're doing well and enjoying the racing so far as we continue to make our way towards the halfway point. Now, with everything that's happened, of course, we need to look at a little bit of the bigger picture. It's all great, the drama that we see lap to lap, corner to corner, and the battles with it. But you might be asking right now, okay, this race is starting to move into a bit of a set of packs that are running together. Normally pairs, trios or quartets. You should be absolutely right, as hold up the phone as soon as I try to talk about strategy. Well, Steve Rubino immediately goes to the strategical, to the tactical, and goes around there and rolls into the banking, rolls into the, what is the tarmac on the lower section, coming towards the banking, and goodness me, the Hobo racing driver having a nightmare moment. He gets it pointed back in the right direction, but that Sunny demotes him all the way down to 15th place, down to 4th place in Evo class, and when he was running so happily in 3rd in said class, right now he's got it all to do again. That's going to be more opportunities made. Samuel Clark is now up into 3rd place in Evo. He's just a little bit in front of this, and whoa, what exactly happened to Steve Rubino? Something tells me a little bit too eager with the throttle pedal. Let's get a replay and find out. Now here it was then coming through turn number 7, gets the power down, and as he does so, the rear just lets go that little bump in the road, just upsetting the car, and as we said earlier on, it's a corner where front-engine rear drive cars have to watch out because the weight transfer, the sudden pitching of the car towards the nose, it really makes the rear of the car incredibly light, and that sends cars like the BMW, the Mercedes and the Ford Mustang around more easily than those mid-engine rear drive cars because they've got the weight situated towards the rear, so the car stays more planted, and it's one thing that can catch out many a driver who's not in the know at Daytona on the exit of turn number 7. But Rubino in the end gets it back together, and just in time, as he's still got plenty more time to try and make up for his deficit. But definitely a bit of a frustrating one there. And well, from that, what else do we have happening? Well, further on down here in the hunt for 26th place, or none other than the 9th place in Evo, it's Andy Rooney versus Alex Boniface. Boniface on the attack here as we ride on board with the McLaren driver, getting very close under braking there to the chrome machine of Rooney. Through turn when they come, and with Boniface there going very deep on the brakes, and that deepness on the brakes is going to cost him all the momentum he had built, as Matt Stays is only a second behind. More Boniface here, giving a bit of demonstration of the fact he can get the time back, because there we see Rooney go a bit deep and sliding loose, coming on through at turn number 4, up towards 6 they come. But these two right now absolutely nip and tuck. They're absolutely back and forth between each other, and well, arguably at this point, I think it's a question of who's going to make the mistake first, given they're both luring each other into mistakes, both a bit of pressure. Boniface goes very deep there at turn number 6, albeit he gets a very late apex as a result of it, but it's not an ideal line. He'll carry a lot of speed up towards turn number 7, but he wants to keep making that mistake, because if he does so, well, overdue time, what's going to happen is he's going to start to put a lot of wear on the outside tyre by running deep, in that instance the front left, but if he was to do it there into turn number 7, it'd be the front right, and those front tyres, well, they don't do as much wear work compared to the rears on a mid-engine rear drive car such as the McLaren, but you still want to keep them in good nick, and you don't want to overheat them if you can help it, because they're the ones that do the turning, the rears do the power deployment. Alex Boniface now has to try and make up the time, chasing down Rooney for 9th in Evo. Well, we've got more afoot a bit further up the road, and well, once again, it comes to Rob Mackay and Scott Kostrich, as these two, nose to tail, the McLarens, they've enjoyed some absolutely brilliant battling as the DXT Motorsports driver versus the Kame GP2 driver, and well, I think we're going to see even more of that. They have ejected Eddie Theobald from the mix, because Mark De Vries was able to get ahead, and Theobald has dropped 4 seconds back, but here we go then, oh, that's, no, it's all gone wrong, as they both converge, and that is going to be Kostrich cutting across the front of Mackay, and in the end, well, the two tried to occupy the same space, and that's not going to work out, and well, for Kostrich, he goes backwards into the wall, and well, meanwhile, Mackay, well, he's going to carry on there, but Kostrich definitely exploring weight reduction options there as the rear bumper of the car comes flying off and throws itself towards the barriers, but out of turn number 4 he goes, and as he does so, we have Robert Savage for company, and well, we can see up there, Savage right now staying tucked right in with Danny there, making their way up towards turn number 6. These drivers right now all together, and I think change might be further afoot, because there you can see, well, we're going up the inside of Savage, and through the right hand they come, and out they roar now up towards turn number 7. And I should say his name correctly, it's Weir, not Ware, and well, Danny Weir absolutely now looking to hunt after Kostrich, and the two McLaren drivers, they might even try to work together here, albeit I can imagine that Kostrich, with the damage he's got on the rear of the car, that's going to be costing him some time, and that's time that's not going to be made up easily until he comes into the pits. But from them, we've also got more afoot inside the top 10. This is Jordan Maymon, the second place Evo class driver, with Andrew Montine for close company behind. Now the Flamed spit out the back of the Ferrari 296, where the Acura they're staying close behind, but Montine in the end goes low and decides, okay, it's time for the pits. And we are starting to see some pit stops now from our top 20 drivers, Montine being one of the big names to do so quite early on here. And as we get close towards the halfway point of this race, well, some drivers we anticipate now might be the opportunity to go for an undercut. But this is a big gamble going for an undercut. You might be wondering why. Well, let's talk strategy for a bit as we do peel over to James Bostock versus Dean Sheasby for 3rd place overall. Well, why this is a consideration and why it's a risk. The idea at Daytona is you want to run as a pack where possible, because that enables you to save fuel, but it also enables you to improve your lap time, because the idea is when you come across that start-finish line, there's, hold up a second, that's going to be Sheasby up the inside there, and well, Bostock seeing it coming, leaves the door open, so Dean Sheasby decides to go for a little late lunge there into turn number 6, but they're both aware of each other, so Sheasby up into 3rd, and Bostock down to 4th, Miller in 5th, the leading Evo driver staying with them. Well, the idea being that you want to be in these packs, and if you avoid fighting, you naturally gain lap time, because by staying in the tow, you are going to gain on the banking somewhere in the region of 6 to 7 miles an hour, depending on the setup and how strong the effect of the tow is. By doing so then, by gaining that lap time, if you come into the pit and you come out and you've got clear air, that's good news. Apart from when you get to the banking, if you haven't got anybody to get the tow off of, the rivals you were racing with earlier on, they may have the tow and they naturally gain overall race time. But if you feel as though you can get the job done in clear air and that your rivals may be squabbling a lot, like Sheesby and Bostock have been doing as a result on this lap, then you may actually find you come out in a similar position to them, much like where you left them, or alternatively you find your way ahead. But going for the undercut here at Daytona definitely is a tricky one. Normally you want to be able to work with someone to make the undercut work. However, something tells me that from the team, he may not have something to work with, and in fact he has come out 2.5 seconds down in 25th place from Simon Hunt. So therefore Montine having to do things of his own volition and pace right now, but he'll see what he can do here. And Bostock, well, closing back up to Sheesby, but he will not be looking for a move here because he'll want to work with the BMW driver in order to make sure they maintain race time and don't lose out. Grant Miller, meanwhile, just watching this and rubbing his hands together in glee. I think thinking to himself, okay, the way they're driving, I can stay with them. And the Evo McLaren driver here absolutely dialed in at the moment. And well, I think the strategy for him will be to pit whenever the two in front of him pit. That is normally the aim of the game, particularly when you're not in the same class as the drivers in front of you. They're matching you for pace and they're giving you a good tow. Pit when they pit and you're guaranteed to come out with them. The only side, of course, is if you've been able to save a lot more fuel, you may leapfrog them. But conversely, you can always potentially just lift off a little bit on pit exit in order to let them come back to the back of you. And that is always a tactic. However, when it's one of your rivals, you may not want to do that, and that's where you want to make the big jump. But speaking of jumping, we jump our way over then to Tillotson versus Hunter. These two both had a bit of a difficult race so far. They're fighting over 26th or 10th place in the Evo class. And Tillotson there yet to pit, where, well, in fact, he has pitted once. And Hunter has not pitted, but they go 2-1 through turn number 1. And right now, they're not concerned about strategy. They're concerned about battling the road. And a lovely move there from Tillotson. And Hunter trying to go for the cutback, but in the end didn't time it right. So the Acura driver does move up for Rhino Academy. And now he's up into 10th for the Evo class and looking to make some more progress. We've got quite a few Evo drivers who have yet to pit, including the likes of Daniel Paul, and that stays Alex Boniface and Sammy Ariba, just to name the next 4 who have yet to pit, and they're all up the road from Tillotson, so he might be fancying his chances to close up on them, and if so, he might have a big opportunity. As we briefly lose Sammy Ariba from the circuit, we'll see if we can get him back before always lost and not found. Albeit it does seem as though right now might be a slight technical issue for Ariba, and if so, that is going to be a premature disconnect and not a good one. But from them, well, we do come back to Rob Smith, who's bringing Fellows along, his teammate. And we're looking back from the rear of the leading while these two McLarens for Flatline Racing. I think Smith going high here. He's going to let his teammate make his way up the inside. They'll swap the places round, albeit Fellows there carrying a lot of an overspeed. In fact, so much of an overspeed it almost catches them out. But understandably, you can imagine with that overspeed, Fellows then able to get it together and doesn't lose too much time there. But definitely a bit of a scary moment. I can imagine Smith might be wondering, what would I come round to on the exit of turn number 1? Would it be my teammate going around, or alternatively getting the place back off my teammate? Well, in the end, it was neither. They were able to settle their differences and continue to move forward as they chase after Jordan Maymar as they look to go hunting after 8th place. But in terms of your top 3s in your classes at the moment, in Premier Class, it's your overall leader, Matthias Smolny. He is leading by 9.5 seconds, and he is comfortably 2.5 seconds, well, in fact, 9.5 seconds ahead of Luke Bailey. And then you do have a further 2.5 seconds to Dean Sheesby. But speaking of Luke Bailey, here he is. And right now, much like our race leader, well, the Ferrari driver is putting an absolutely solid stint. The only thing is he hasn't quite got an answer to the pace of Smolny, and that pace right now going the way of Smolny by an average of 0.2 of a second a lap. And in fact, we can get you the lap time deltas, I believe, up on screen very shortly. We might be able to pop those up for you, and if we can give you an exact exhibit as to how that delta is going. In fact, we can't quite get those up at the moment. Well, as we do bring up the lap times there. Well, in fact, yes, we can bring up those lap time deltas there, and that goes to show you at first, second and third. And, well, as they all appear, Smolny right now definitely in control with regards to the pace, and by a sizable margin of both Bailey and also Dean Sheesby. And, well, speaking of Dean Sheesby a bit further back, well, he's been enjoying some great battling with James Bostock, but I think these two have finally settled the ground between them, and it is now Sheesby in third place with Bostock. I think thinking of the bigger picture here, which is if I save fuel, I can get back ahead of the very fast BMW. Coming to then the Evo class, well, just outside the top 4, 5th place overall is your Evo leader, Grant Miller, who took the lead of Thiago Reza after he had his incident at the bus stop chicane. So Miller right now running very comfortably in the lead of the class, albeit Jordan Maymar has just come into the pit lane from second. He's been serviced, and that's going to promote third place man into second, Samuel Clark, who's running currently in 9th overall. He's bringing James Pallett with him, and Clark, one of the biggest gainers of this race, and the biggest gainer of them all is right behind him. James Pallett, 31 places gained overall. Clark, 30 places gained overall, about 14 places gained in Evo. And right now, Samuel Clark might be pulling off a miracle here to have gone all the way from the back of the Evo field at the start of the race to come all the way through to be on the podium, and that will be a huge achievement. In fact, one of the finest achievements in terms of places gained by an Evo driver in a single round of racing. Whether it be a feature or a sprint race, to be fair, you've got to be there and get it right to do it, and he's doing exactly that. But now coming back to the front of the field, and here we can see Shrewsbury versus Bostock. They decide to exchange paint once again, and as they roar the way around, it looks like Bostock's now going to be allowed to take the place of his rival, but something tells me here that Shrewsbury's not going to let this go immediately. He's going to make Bostock fight for it for a little bit, so they will queue up together, but now Bostock will take the lead here. But how much pace will he pull on the run on towards the second of the banks, heading round through turn number 12? And the answer is it's 2 tenths to the exit of Bostock chicane. The BMW falls back initially, but then the BMW will get into 6th gear, and it will suddenly start to gain a lot of speed from its twin-turbo machine. And as he roars his way on over towards the start-finish line, well, the naturally aspirated flat 6 here of the Porsche, it roars, it screams, but the BMW, meanwhile, a silent assassin when it comes to places, and looking to go around the outside and going high here. There'll be 2 wide coming down to turn number 1. Miller watching behind, and as they enter the left-hander, well, it's going to be Bostock who defends, and well, Shrewsbury looking to make the move, but all this fighting, of course, it's going to gradually cause them to compress. And speaking of compression, Mark Johnson now is getting onto the back of this. He is running in 5th place. Overall 4th place in Premier, and he'll fancy his chances to potentially get involved here, but we do have to consider the fact that we've got more drivers coming into the pits. Luke Bailey is coming from 2nd place, James Pallett is coming from 10th place, so with drivers now coming in more and more, these fuel tanks are getting light, and this is all about positioning, but those who continue to fight and stay out on circuit, they may be losing a lot of race time, and that race time will prove costly. Now, speaking of a driver at that huge shunt, and it proved costly, albeit he's trying to make something out of it, it's Thiago Reza, with Steve Rubino a little bit further behind him. You can see there the BMW drivers of Reza and Rubino moving forward. They have taken their mandated pit stops as a result of the damage they picked up and the spins they've had. So therefore, you could understand right now if these two are fancying working together on the basis of the enemy of my enemy is my friend in order to try and chase down the top 5 in the Evo class. This could really work out as Stuart Rice in the purple Lamborghini there defending the inside of Blue Sky Esports, and well, he doesn't want to try and lose track position. There is James Pallett leaving the pit lane. Does he come out into all of this? That is a very close run for Pallett. It's not a good one for Pallett here, and here comes Rice up the inside, and the James Pallett, that's going to cost him a lot of time here, because now he gets reeled into a battle in the 113, and well, with that, he was trying to hunt down a top 10. This may prove costly unless he can work with Rice, but we'll have to see. But behind them, Rubino versus Riser. Well, Rubino did get ahead through the horseshoe hairpin, and now in towards turn number 6 they come, with Pete Piper close up behind. Riser looks up the inside, there's a small tap to the rear, and Rubino goes slightly deep. They're still fighting each other. It's absolutely bonkers between these two at the moment, and I don't think they got the memo, which is work together and you'll gain ground. Instead, they've decided tear it up, put the boxing gloves on, and go toe-to-toe in the battle of the Beamers. But coming out to turn number 7, it's going to be Rubino who gets ahead for now, but here then comes the slipstream, and in the popcorn seat view watching all of this, we jump on board with the Brazilian Pete Piper, the Alice Racing driver here, who right now stays absolutely close, and as he does so, we'll right now just watching and waiting to see what exactly will happen between the two fighters for 6th place at Evo. Well, there goes Reza up the inside. Rubino stays on the outside here. Onto the brakes they come. And it's going to be there. Reza gets back up the inside, but Rubino now will have the toe coming out of the bus stop chicane, and that's the thing. It's about the timing here. Albeit Rubino, a poor run. Hold up, that! Who was that? Was that Simon Hunt with a broken front end on a Porsche? I think that was. That was Hunt into the barrier, and he's trying to get it back together. There is Hunt trying to bring it on through. Well, we'll get a replay of what happened to him very shortly. Let's come back to Rubino versus Reza for a moment, and well, as we look to these two, heading on down in towards turn number 1. Well, Piper's going to be giving Rubino a bit of a push because Razor's run away to 7 tenths, and Piper in the end stays back, decides not to bump draft the BMW in the Ford Mustang. Bump draft is a very risky tactic, but meanwhile, speaking of risk, there's Stuart Rice going up the inside of Pallett to hold on to none other than 17th place. These two have both taken pit stops, so therefore they won't be going to the pits again unless it's for damage, and Rice right now very eager to hold on to 12th here in the Premier class, and wondering what else that could be worth towards the end of the race. Well, with all that and the big questions, we've also got questions to answer. What exactly happened to Simon Hunt other than the big shunt? And well, the answer is, here's a replay. Now, this was Hunt coming down to the bus stop chicane on his own in the 173. Goes over the apex curb, car's fine, takes a little bit too much of the exit curbing into the barrier, and the car goes up onto the wall. And in the end, it's over for Simon Hunt. That is a big bruiser, and I can imagine as the car rolls backwards, he then tries to roll it forward in order to end up on the racing line, and does exactly that in good time there from Simon Hunt. So good awareness, and that car's now in the pit lane being repaired, as I've been informed. But more pit stops are underway, and with pit stops, we have a new race leader. He has yet to take his pit stop, to be fair, so he will lead for 1 or 2 laps, and he will need to come on in. And it's the Corvette leading for the first time here at Daytona, and it is Robin Palnier who is doing so. Good on him to keep out there in the 123. Some brilliant fuel saving being done here by the 123 driver, but Of course, keeping in mind that he will end up going further down the order, but I think his mantra has been stay out front, stay out there, and do not get involved in fights. And by doing so, he's been able to save the fuel off of the cars he's been following around, and also he's been having some very consistent lap times. And we'll put 2 and 2 together here. The good point being this Corvette right now may bring some surprises, albeit Matthias Smolny is back out of the pit lane in second place, your race leader here. He'll be wondering why he's not in first. He'll probably be thinking, okay, I was going to have a grand slam here, which is to put it right at the front of the field and then just run away with it. However, he's not quite going to do so because firstly Robin Aston took the pole position, so Smolny not getting the bonus points there for, let's say, pole position, or the brownie points we should say. But he's been leading this race ever since we did see what happened to Aston, and right now for Smolny, well, he's in second place. He'll inherit that lead back because he is 31 seconds off the race leader, and the pit time here at Daytona is the best part of 50 seconds or so, if my memory serves me correctly. But one thing that is noticeable, look at this, and this is where fuel saving has proved a big difference. Smolny has had his gap of 9 seconds slashed to 3.5 seconds to Luke Bailey. Now, on paper, we believe that Smolny has got a 0.2 of a second on average lap advantage versus Bailey. But because Smolny's been alone, he's just been running away. He hasn't saved any fuel, and that's why this gap has come down considerably. But something tells me it's not going to keep coming down unless Bailey's been reserving all his pace for the second stint, which some drivers do that. They save all their energy because these 60-minute races are quite grueling. But Bailey right now feels some confidence that he's nailed it on strategy to make sure that Smolny has not had this race all his own way, and he's been able to do some great fuel saving because Bailey's been quite lonely out there as well. He has not had the comfort of doing that much fuel saving behind other cars, particularly once Smolny had pulled away and we had the instant final race leader before Smolny took the lead. Well, therefore, it does mean this Ferrari definitely going very comfortably on fuel. As we say hello in the YouTube chat there to Kevin Miranda, who's having a good time and showing it through emojis. But trying not to get too emotional at the moment. Oh, goodness me, there's our drivers there, make the way on through. We see Robert Savage all over the back of Danny Ware, and Ware right now still in the company of the Porsche driver, albeit in 2 different classes. And as they roar the way out of the bus stop chicane, no change between them at the moment. They continue to try and work together. And we do have Paunier into the pit lane from the lead of the race, and Robin Paunier makes his way out the pit lane. And look at this, look how much he's gained in the fact that he's now moved up into 5th place. Dean Shearsby's behind. Where's James Bostock? Hold up a second, is Bostock all the way up in 3rd? I think there he is, and there's Bostock. He's leapt his way up into 3rd place. In fact, he's managed to break away from Shearsby, who was fighting hard and took on a lot more fuel in the pit lane. Bostock's really made the strategy work, as has Grant Miller, as we see the 82 Flatline Racing Machine step aside, and that being the car of none other, I do believe, of Daniel Paul moving aside. Paunier also through, and well, we said about Paunier having a brilliant bit of strategy in the Corvette. He's definitely shown that, as Robin right now is really flying high, and well, Dean Shearsby looking onwards and thinking to himself, okay, a Corvette's suddenly got in the way, I've got to try and catch that up. As the sim coach driver heads up onto the banking, well, Shearsby is then being followed up by Andrew Fellows and Mark Johnson. And Fellows as well, with the work he put in with his teammate Rob Smith, he's come back out in 7th place. Smith, meanwhile, is all the way down in 10th place, and I think Fellows was able to save a bit more fuel and didn't spend as much time in the pit lane. 3 seconds end-to-end shorter pit stop time, and that's enabled him to get ahead of Mark Johnson. Johnson having a very long pit stop, 1 minute and 7 seconds end-to-end in the pit lane, and a lot of fuel. I believe Johnson may have changed all tyres on that car, given the fact he had a 29-second stationary time, whereas most drivers have had a stationary time of 21 to 22 seconds. Well, that's a gamble changing all 4 tyres, because yes, they'll come out of the warm tyre blanket, but the problem is you've still got to get these tyres warmed up in the first place, and therefore those who change all 4 tyres, they will be thinking to themselves, okay, I have to try and take the car like I did at the start of the race, albeit these cars have a bit less fuel in them now compared to how they started the race, but it will be a very prickly car for at least the first 5 to 6 laps. They've got to get those tyres warmed up. When they do, they'll have fresher rubber. They will be able to extract more pace, but they'll lose a lot of time in the process of getting the rubber up to temperature. But from what's happening inside the top 15 to at the very bottom and just outside of it, this is Pete Piver, Steve Rubino, James Pallett, Stuart Rice and Thierry Reza. And Reza has moved his way all the way back into 3rd place after his dismal moment at the bus stop chicane from the lead of the class in the early stage of the race. Well, right now it definitely seems as though the 12th place runner is making some great progress here and would like to try and get a bit closer to Jordan Maymar. But if he wants to do that, well, understandably, with Maymar in his 2nd place running the class being 10.3 seconds up the road, it means that Razor's got to go some. His pace right now, not quite matching Maymar, a bit slower, but then again, it will come down to who's got the toe, who's in the slipstream of whoever, and that's going to be a big influencing factor. But at least for Razor, he's going to be potentially back on the podium come the end of this race, and that is going to give him a lot of confidence. Now, we have had confirmation, unfortunately, for the Quatermass esports driver, or the Quatermass motorsport driver, I should say, of Sammy Ariba. There was a technical issue and he's had to retire the car, so that's unfortunate. We have lost one of the team that wasn't on the grid for Season 8, but they're back after Season 7. They're back on the grid for Season 9. They've had one of their trio full. We still do have Andy Chell in the race, and I believe also we do have their other driver of Oliver Forstrom. And in fact, speaking of the Lamborghini driver, here he is, and Forstrom in the 42 right now. Well, he's all the way down in 11th place in Evo class, trying to chase after Alex Boniface, who is 7.5 seconds up the road from him. In fact, about 8.2 seconds now as I double check my timing screens, but still Forstrom trying to keep ahead of Matthew Hunter. All these pit stops have been accounted for and doing a good job. As in fact, I get corrected there, Jack Pitter saying that the same is with Mission Art, and I do apologise for that. Yep, you are right. In fact, I'm thinking of the older team, and well, shout out there with teammate Forstrom and also his other teammate out there of none other than Simon Hunt. And it will Forstrom being new to the team. But thank you for the correction there, Jack. Do appreciate it, and I'm sure I'll need correcting every so often over the course of the season. So there's always new names, new teams, and with it, plenty of things to get right and also get wrong. But then again, nobody's flawless in the commentary booth, and that's why it's all about you guys and girls at home, the fans. You spot things and point out things, and we try to correct them or make sure we pay attention to them. But as we do come then in towards the final quarter of this race, everyone right now continues to push onwards, and James Pallett, well, he's under a bit of pressure, and Steve Rubino, albeit I think Pallett will be very keen to keep Rubino between himself and Paver, because it will be Pete Piver who'll be looking to try and make the move for 11th place in the Premier class as they come down to the brakes there. And the BMW driver of none other than Rubino watching onwards in 4th place. He'd love to get a bit closer. He'd love to go chasing after fellow BMW Evo driver Tierra Reza. However, he's got to get past the Premier pair in front of him. And from Pallett, up ahead, it'll be Stuart Rice. And in fact, as we look back from the rear of Pallett's car, let's look forward from the inside of the car. And there you can see Rice off in the distance, who's giving chase to the 3rd place Evo driver of Reza. And right now, it does seem as though Pallett falling away little by little, and this Ferrari just does not have as much pace as its rivals in front of it. But that does happen over time. Speaking of time, well, it's time we did look a bit further on down the order as well, and we look down to Barry Wenman, who is chasing after Andy Chell. They are effectively a lap down, but they're fighting over 17th place in the Evo class. It's always good to see these battles further on down, fighting for last scraps of points, but to these drivers, those points are the equivalent of a win. They always want to try and go for every point that's out there. It means a lot to them, and we love to see it, as Wenman going a little bit higher there, and I think deciding to go a bit high initially, not go fully into the toe, in order to make sure he gradually gains the speed close towards the start-finish line. The Dexterous Motorsport Quamar driver, here he comes then, and with an overspeed that's going to be in the region of 283 kilometres an hour. We're looking around the outside of Chell. Can he go for it under braking? And the answer is going to be no, he can't. Chell will defend it. Goes very deep. And that mistake there being goaded out of Andy Chell. And that's going to enable Wenman to take 17th place in the Evo class. Classic setup, which is get your rival on that inside line. It's a shorter braking zone. Get him to outbrake himself. And Wenman doing the perfect move there to move up another place and into 36th overall. But Chell may come back at him yet. He's only 1.1 seconds behind. You never know. But right now, Wenman will be trying to close up there to Piver, who is a lap up on him. And, well, we'll be very keen to try and stay with him where possible. Now, we have had a bit of an incident. That is Andrew Montine, who's gone around, and I believe that is at the turn 6 hairpin as he rejoins. And there we can see in the background that is Wenman and Chell, and Paver just making his way up the inside. But what exactly happened to Montine to trigger that is the question. Well, here's a quick replay to explain for the accurate driver for Axis Sim Sports. Well, he heads on through the king. Oh no, and that is a very uncomfortable situation. He went a bit too much over the apex curb and will in the end becoming a passenger in his own car, and thankfully having the runoff area there, the abrasive surface to bring the car to a halt. Can we get an on board of that to give you an idea of the speed and the snap? Well, in fact, I think we can. Here it was. And just taking a bit too much go, you can see he corrects it one way, the car then jerks the other way as the rear of the car, where the mass is, suddenly reacts to him jinking the car the other way. And we're in that point, once the weight has gone, once it's transversed one way then the other, you really do become a passenger. And for the Axis Sim Sport ICE driver, thankfully a passenger is able to get things back together. We're coming to you live at iRacing, and we still do have 13 minutes on the clock plus the final lap. And in terms of big battles out there, well, the biggest one inside the top 10, as we briefly lose at Matthias Smolny, but he does return from the EFA. Hopefully that's not a sign of something to come. That would be very late drama. Is that we've got James Pallett still trying to chase down Stuart Rice, but he's got Steve Rubino, who's very eager to make a move around the outside. And, well, the reason why he wants to make that move, of course, is to chase down Tigger Reza, and 8 seconds up the road from the pair of them will be Jordan Neymar, the 2nd place Evo driver. But right now, Pallett continuing to absolutely insist that he wants to hold track position 13th overall. and we're understandable there, and just trying to make sure he doesn't lose out. But that's one of the biggest battles up the road. In terms of inside the top 10, we do have the fight between Dean Sheesby and, I believe, Robin Paunier. And in fact, they have changed places quite recently, with Sheesby getting ahead of Paunier. That was back on, well, in fact, earlier on in this lap. What exactly happened to trigger that? Here's a replay. Now, it was Paunier being chased closely by Sheesby there as they made the way up towards the start line. The Corvette driver not having the speed of the BMW because of the slipstream. Went high, Sheesby up the inside, and I think decided just to let this go. And what you can understand there, given the success he's had on the strategy, he looked for a potential cutback there if Sheesby overcooked it, but not so. And in the end, the BMW driver just gradually pulling away. So a classic move there. I think Paunier recognising the fact that today is all about just getting some points on the board and having a smooth race. And well, by letting it go, it means that Andrew Fellows is 2.5 seconds back as we come back to your live race. And we see him here, well, that 2.5 seconds articulated on your camera and demonstrated to be it's not that far. And if Fellows can get within 1.5 seconds, he'll start to pick up a distant toe off the back of Paunier's car, and that may enable him to start to get a little bit closer. So Paunier really thinking about the bigger picture, because after Fellows, it's 1.6 seconds to Johnson, then 2 seconds to Smith. He doesn't want to lose too many places. He'd rather lose 1 place in order to save another 3, and I think that's very smart driving from the 1-2-3. As we take a quick sip of water there, and we do look down the order. At the bottom end of the top 15, this is Andrew Montine, the man who had the spin at turn number 6. And well, as he looks down the outside of paver there, it's going to be a move and a half. Does he get it on the stop? Yes, he does. Looking to go around the outside, and 2 wide they come out the corner. And in the end, well, Piver absolutely holding on there. And well, coming down towards turn number 4, they go. And Montine looking one way, then the other. And well, Pete Piver right now doing a fantastic job of defending, making that Ford Mustang even wider than it is normally. And well, Rob Mackay a little bit further back will be trying to think about getting involved in this. Albeit he's 4 seconds back. We were told over the radio the next 2 drivers up the road are your rivals, and they fight each other hard as Piver goes defensive again, coming down to the hairpin. This is brilliant defensive driving. Montine takes way too much road on entry, and that's going to send him out to the grass. He catches the car back and pulls it back onto the tarmac. The grass sloping away there slightly on the outside of the hairpin, not normally noticeable until you're inside the car, less so on the cameras, and Montine able to save the car from being pulled to the barrier, but Piver there doing a brilliant bit of defensive driving and well fending off the Premier star of Montine, who was one of our stars in Evo last season, of course, but right now meeting his match in the Premier class. But great to see him giving it to some of the regulars in Premier. That's what it's all about, making a good first impression. But Martin Kenyon, meanwhile, well, a Premier driver who started all the way in 3rd place, but ended up into the barrier at turn number 3 on the open lap. Well, right now he's trying to make his way past Oliver Forstrom and the Quatermass Esports machine. Well, right now coming down towards the braking zone there for turn number 6, and we'll rolling the wound around. And both drivers here staying together, both powered by the same Audi V10 engine. It's in both that Lamborghini and also the Audi, but right now, whether the machine's made in Italy or alternatively in Germany, one thing that is for certain is these two are locking horns, and Ross Nords will be just in front there, and will pull Forstrom's Lamborghini along as well and give it a little bit of safety. But what's not safe right now is the battle here between Boniface and Tillotson. Tillotson getting closer and closer. They're fighting over 9th place in the Evo class. Good little battle here for the final spots inside the top 10. Looking one way is Tillotson, then the other. But Boniface going nice and normal on the line. Tillotson looked around the outside, then decided to back off. I think he was thinking, should I go to the inside quickly? Not so. Takes a lot of apex curve on the exit, does Tillotson. I think he gets away with that just about from an automated slowdown penalty. And now here he comes then. The gap on the exit of the chicane was the best part of 2.5 tenths, but now he's getting closer and closer, little by little, as they move their way towards the start finish line. They're on the flat now for the pit entry, but as they come on towards the banking for the start finish, we can see there Tillotson looking around the outside, decides not to. He goes down low to the inside. Here they go then onto the brakes. Will it be Boniface? Will it be Tillotson? There's a door rub between the two of them. Tillotson wants it more, and on the inside he goes. However, he catches the car a little bit of oversteer. Boniface meanwhile goes out wide on a wider circumference, can't come back, and it's a nice move from Tillotson. And in the end, Craig Tillotson moves up into 9th place in Evo there in an Acura that definitely has been working hard all day, and now he's got to try and break away. But I wouldn't be surprised if Boniface now wants an opportunity to come back at him as they head in towards the second of the hairpins, albeit via the kink of turn number 5. But still some time out. There's in the pit lane is Martin Kenyon. I believe Kenyon's had another incident, unfortunately, that's seen him come into the pit, and the day for the Audi driver is ended up in more misery, unfortunately. Indeed, we're hoping for a better day for him in a week's time at Brands Hatch. but as these drivers continue to push their way onwards, there's still more to come, no doubt about it. And with regards to what is still to come, well, Tillerson definitely breaking away here, it would seem. That gap now up to 1 second, and well, a brilliant run. And well, I do believe there, Jonathan Berry saying in the YouTube chat with regards to what happened. We thought he started from the pit lane, but thank you for the correction there. We do appreciate it. So an instant right at the start of the race. Unfortunately, we didn't quite get a replay of that, but as our drivers make their way onwards, well, we do look back to 11th place, and this is Pallet, Rice, Rubino and Piver. And we'll all 4 drivers head down in towards the hairpin, and we'll stay in as they are and bringing along with them a lap down car. And well, as they roar the way around, no change at the moment. As we're hearing that Alex Boniface has just had a bit of a spin on circuit, and in fact, I think there's been a bit of an incident. Well, in fact, yes, it's at the bus stop chicane he's had the incident, and we won't quite get a replay of that at the moment, but he will be passed by Eddie Theobald and also Andy Rooney, 2 Evo drivers taking the place off of him, and they will move further up the road as Boniface has actually, in fact, had to tow to the pitch due to damage picked up at the bus stop chicane. From what I'm hearing in my ear, so Boniface's race is going from good to bad to disaster. After being passed by Tillerson, it's all gone backwards very quickly. But Pallet right now, really the leader of this pack as they charge their way onto the turn 8 banking. And with Rice, Rubino, Paver, and also Piver, I should say, and also Montine following on through. One of the big questions that we have now in the closing stage of this race is, have our drivers got enough fuel to get to the end? And why am I asking that? Well, because the one thing which is around here, fuel saving versus taking enough fuel to run in clear air by yourself, 2 very different worlds in terms of the fuel tanks. It does mean the fuel calculator predictions very quickly change from lap to lap. So you can imagine that some drivers right now, they may be looking at the fuel gauges and just double checking, have they got enough without needing to save? Or if they need to save, they will need to tuck in behind by their rivals and do so until they've got the confidence that the numbers line up. And well, we could expect to see some drivers run on fumes on that final lap, depending on how many laps we get. And that's the thing as well, if we do end up in a position whereby we're at risk of crossing a threshold to get an extra lap in, and our drivers haven't fueled to that extra lap, and it could be pandemonium going on to that final lap. But Rice there coming in down low versus Pallet. Pallet still defending for 9th place in Premier, and right now not giving in. But you can see that Rice definitely trying to find an opportunity. Steve Rubino, the 3rd place Evo driver, he's just watching patiently with Pete Paver, looking up the inside, potentially a little bit later. After Rubino goes to the move, that's going to put Rice out very wide, and Piver there goes for it as they head in towards the King. And well, now here comes Rice back, so the Huracan driver goes defensive there. Piver looking around the outside, but that's the back of the throttle. You can see Rice is not too happy. Around in the rear of the picture goes one of the drivers all the way. That's Wenman going around. He was a lap down, but that's commiserations for him because he was trying to stay with this pack to gain some time. And here comes Montine right now. That's almost going to be 3 wide here, heading towards turn number 7. Rice absolutely sending it to the inside into left-hander. It's going to be Piver around the outside there. You can see Rice able to get the throttle down immediately. Doesn't have to worry about the bump in the road, and he takes the place. But as they head on to 8 now, he's the lead car here. He has a distant tow of a Rubino, but it's a very distant one. And with the fact that Ford Mustang is looking large, it's looking larger, and it's looking largest just as he's going to tap on the rear. Well, right now Rice making his way down towards the bus stop chicane will go defensive here as much as he possibly can. These 3 are really just gesticulating for position right now, and Rice, after being passed by Rubino, who made that move into the horseshoe hairpin, well, Rice not happy about how that was made. I think there might be some words with them after the race, but right now Rice, Piver and Montine all fighting, albeit no! What's happened here for Andrew Montine? He's come to a stop right next to the bus stop chicane. Do we have an immediate replay? Yes, we do. And well, it's looking to be a 3-way fight. Surely not. It hasn't gone around at the bus stop. Yes, it has. And much like the King earlier, and it snaps one way, he corrected it the other way, and nasty hit to the barrier, front left suspension and front right suspension immediately collapsing, and Andrew Montine's race in the pits, and that is going to be a retirement, I think. I don't think he's coming back from that one right at the close, and that is going to be absolutely heart-wrenching, as we do have Simon Hunt there parked in the grass, and I think he's not trying to get a tan. I think he's waiting for the field to go back past him so that way he can get back on circuit. But it means Sonny, the battle for 10th place goes down to 2, Stuart Rice and Pete Piver, and well, both of these drivers right now continuing onwards, no change between them at the moment, but Rice definitely find he's got to finish in 10th place doing things the hard way, and well, some like it the easy way, but for Rice, after everything that's been thrown at him, I think if he can hold on to this, he can hold on to any position over the course of the season. He's definitely proven to put on one of the best defensive drives of the day at Daytona. But as we come towards the close, no drivers right now showing any signs of needing potentially coming to the pit lane. There's no scrambles in the pits in terms of drivers potentially needing to come back in, as far as I can see. Not that any team would want to give away And the fact their drive's running low on fuel for the simple reason they want to give any confidence to their rivals further behind them. But it's always a consideration here with 3 minutes plus a final lap to go. Speaking of final laps to go, look at this. This is none other than James Bostock making his way onwards. And as he does, he has got the toe there of one of the Supercars Racing UK cars. And I think he's going to need it because Grant Miller has been closing on him little by little over the last couple of laps. That lap, well, Miller matched by Bostock, but Bostock having the toe off of the back of the Supercars Racing UK Ferrari. But Miller definitely coming on forward. In fact, getting very close there as Bostock getting a face full of Ferrari coming through turns 1, 2 and 3. I think Miller here might be fancying his chances for third place overall. I think he'll go for it on the final lap if the confidence there, and Bostock is looking vulnerable. But Miller definitely is right now feeling an absolute urge to try and make that move, albeit he's got to try and make his way around the number 10 here into the King. The number 10 does not see him coming, and in the end, well, Miller's momentum is going to be cut there, and that being the car Matthew Hunter. And I think Hunter not realising it's multiple at yellow flags there. I think he's thinking he might be racing with Miller, but then again, it is for the faster car to make a safe pass on the round. And I think Hunter here deciding to wait for Miller to go onto the banking before letting him go, and I think Hunter there deciding just to play it the long term. You've got plenty of straight here, you've got plenty of road, and who can blame him there? Those are a little bit more nervous. Well, Hunter deciding to step aside immediately. He wasn't intentionally holding back, but doesn't have the confidence to let Miller go until they get onto the oval banking. And Miller may not be too happy about the fact an opportunity for third has slightly gone astray, but in retrospect, I think he'll recognise the fact that particularly for newer drivers, well, and particularly our Evo drivers, most of them typically being, say, newer drivers or less experienced drivers, they are drivers normally are learning their craft and may not do things the way you want them to, but they'll still do things eventually because they do love to follow the rule book like any driver does. There we do see Rice pushing onwards, and well, from Rice we did briefly see for a moment there Rachel Hugh trying to chase after Matthew Hunter, and Hugh right now the Blue Square Esports car we haven't really talked about today. Well, that's hunting down 12th place in the Evo class versus Hunter, only 3 attempts behind as they head on around, and they've got the company there of one of our lead lap drivers trying to stay with them as they'll make their way onto their final lap shortly. Our leader has made his way onto the final lap. We will turn a grand total of 34 laps when all is said and done here at Daytona today, and it's been a brilliant day of racing, no doubt about it. Great season opener, but how is it all going to end now with that one lap left on the board? Well, as the fight here for 12th place in Evo between Hunter and Hugh starts to build to a crescendo, and we can see Hugh getting close as Paunier meanwhile behind on the lead lap is just going to watch Hugh getting a little bit too eager on the braking there in towards the hairpin, but does bring it back. In fact, recovers that very well, doesn't lose any time at all. But the problem will be that that's going to give a bit of confidence to Hunter, which is he may be able to just hold racing line position all the way to the very end, as long as he doesn't make any mistakes. But not making mistakes when you're on old tyres, and the tired arms and tired legs, and a very low fuel car at this point. The car's at its lightest at this point of the race. Well, that is going to be one of those challenges that you'll need to survive. As you can see Hugh getting a bit close there, looking up the inside, going for the move. Hunter leaves the door open there and runs wide as a result. Carries too much speed, but Hugh follows him, and in the end decides, no, it's not the time to. And they're going to be side by side as they make the way through the banking now. All the way onwards, then they'll go towards the bus stop chicane. The checkered flag is ready to come out for our leader who's at the bus stop chicane, but Rachel Hugh moves up into 12, but Hunter may come back at this before all is said and done. But let's come back then to your top 3, and right now James Bostock, well, he's in third, running comfortably ahead of Dean Sheesby, won by 1.4 seconds. Luke Bailey 4.3 seconds ahead of Bostock here in a very lonely race for Luke Bailey, but as he heads through the final banking for the final time, we've got to look to this man, because for Matthias Simoni it is a race that has gone incredibly well. He's been absolutely faultless to a T, and for this season opener it goes the way of Matthias Simoni, who takes victory overall in Premier Class by 4 seconds in the end over Luke Bailey, who's your runner-up. It would have been James Bostock who completes your top 3. Then Grant Miller, what an achievement from him on his debut in the McLaren. Well, he takes victory in Evo, and indeed he was the favourite coming out of Okayama, and he's the favourite here today. Dean Sheesby rounds off your top 5 to complete full place in the Premier Class ahead of Robin Paunier. What a drive from him, 6th place overall. You come to 2nd place in the Evo class of Jordan Maymar. He takes 2nd, 9th overall for Evo. James Pallett is 10th, and then it will be Steve Rubino who rounds off your Evo podium there ahead of Stuart Rice, who fend off Pete Piver to the charge, and then it was the top 15 completed by Rob Mackay and Scott Kostridge. From those two, we also did have a few more drives to come on through, including Mark De Vries and then Robert Savage, Danny Ware, and we do believe that Mark Johnson finished in 19th place in the end, or what translates into 15th in Premier, with Denny Plager 20th An absolutely solid drive, 5th place in the Evo class, and Will Ploger doing a solid job here for the first race of the season after difficulties at the bottom end of the previous season. Thiago Reza, the driver who was leading early on in Evo, well, he finished in 6th in the end after having to make 2 pit stops for some extra fuel. But keep your eyes out for him, definitely a bit eager today, but that eagerness is going to go a long way if he maintains it. Sean Clark then takes 22nd or 7th place in the Evo class, ahead of Ross Norsworth and Craig Tillerson, and Tillerson in the end earning an 8th place. What a drive from him, fights his way up into the Evo top 10 and never looking back. And then have Eddie Theobald on his debut, taking home at 25th overall at 9th place in the Evo class. So some good points on the board as he comes across the timeline. And then Andy Rooney will also finish on the lead lap there, be the last of your lead lap finishers, I believe, in 26th place or 10th in Evo. Well, that's definitely race number 1 complete, ladies and gentlemen. What a race it was, but as all of the drivers there cool the way down, I think it's going to be the game now of who can get to the pit lane with the limited amount of fuel they have. Well, the one thing we've definitely seen at Daytona today is that it was a Porsche that took victory overall, as well as a Porsche that put it on pole. And in the Premier class for Matthias Smolny, it was definitely a race of his own. But meanwhile, in the Evo class, Grant Miller in a McLaren, well, he was in the Ford Mustang last season. It was a Mustang that continued to bite back at him, but right now it's smooth moves in this McLaren, and swapping out the V8 machine, naturally aspirated V8 machine, for a turbo supplemented V8 in the form of that McLaren 720S. The twin turbo machine definitely favouring Miller, and well, could this be the start of something special this season? Well, the Jordan Maymar Ferrari would like to say different, and I think Maymar will be very happy with that for Simcast Racing UK on his debut for this season, and what a drive from him to finish 2nd. He'll be very proud of that. And Steve Rubino, 3rd place in the BMW, putting all the things that went wrong at the start of Season 8 to bed. And if Rubino can keep this up, I think we are in for a treat of an Evo Class Championship. And that's not to rule out the fact that we see James Bostock back on the Premier podium, 3rd place overall in an incredibly consistent drive, and in the end he got close to Luke Bailey, couldn't quite make it happen for 2nd, but kept Dean Sheasby at bay, with Bailey taking that 2nd place in a lonely Ferrari. But then again, a standout performance from him, but just not able to touch Matthias Smolny. There was of course the favour of Robin Aston ending up having to retire from the race early on due to a technical issue, but sometimes that's the way it goes, and a well-deserved top 3 in both classes and overall. But as we do see there, Grant Miller celebrating on the Daytona greenery, and I'm sure he'll be fine for that afterwards. Let's take a look at the scenic view, and with it the race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And here they are, ladies and gentlemen. And after a superb 60 minutes of racing for your Split B season opener in the trophy AI-powered Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship Season 9, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, Matthias Smolny took victory for Mission R Esports by 4 seconds over Glass Tech Racing's Luke Bailey. 3rd went the way of James Bostock to round off the overall and the Premier podium for Kame GP2 Racing, and then Grant Miller was only a further 2 seconds behind, but Evo winner there for Phoenix Racing Red in the McLaren, and the Scotsman, he'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. Dean Sheasby took 5th place there for Moonshiners Racing Club, ahead of sim coaches Robin Pelnier. And from the Corvette driver from Sweden, it was then the Britons for Flatline Racing and the McLarens of Andrew Fellows and Rob Smith, who worked together and earned themselves an absolutely brilliant 7th and 8th. Jordan Maymar was 9th, 2nd place in Evo there for the Simcast Racing Team UK Ferrari, ahead of James Pallett's Ferrari for Racing League Hub. And then from 10th to 11th, it was Steve Rubino, a further, what was 1 second behind, if that, in fact, a further 10th behind, let's correct ourselves there. And the American driver celebrated by his brother, Daniel Rubino, in the YouTube chat, who we say hello to, and we'll take him 3rd place in Evo for Hobo Racing, and also just missing out in the top 10, but still a solid start in the BMW M4. Your top 15 was rounded off by Stuart Rice of Blue Sky Esports, who fended off the charge of Pete Piper's Ford Mustang for LS Racing, and also the McLarens of Dexterous Motorsport ZMX of Rob Mackay and Scott Kostrich's Kame GP2 Racing Machine. Outside the top 15, well, we won't go through all of them next. We'll come on to the individual class finishing position shortly, but we will talk about the drivers who finished a lap or more down, and also those who had the unfortunate retirements. And as we can see, your top 26 finished on the lead lap, with the primitive Andy Rooney being 26th there. And from the accurate driver, it was then Quatermass Motorsports' Oliver Forstrom, who led the drivers who were a lap down, ahead of Matthew Hunter, Rachel Hugh, Daniel Poole, Andy Chell, Simon Hunt, who ended up with a couple of nasty shunts out there. And we also did see a lap down for Liam Yaniso, Hussein Sarkadesla, also Matt Stace, and in 2 laps down for Barry Wenman ahead of Alex Boniface. 4 laps down with that late retirement, but he will be classified as a finisher for Andrew Montine with that huge impact to the bus stop chicane with only 5 minutes left for Axis Simsport Ice. He retired just after his teammate Martin Kenyon, the man who started 3rd, but in the Audi it only went backwards, not forwards. And we also did see much earlier retirements in the race for Samuel Clark, also for Sammy Ariba, Owen Seward, for Adam Baker, Charlie Stoffard, John Lebrett, Philip McConaughey, Jonathan Berry, Robin Aston and Austin Graff. We're now coming on to the individual class finishing positions, and as we can see here, as we do come to the Premier class, first and foremost, this is where all the points are scored, made or lost. We see Matthias Smolny there winning for Michelin Esports by 4 seconds, and just absolutely unstoppable at the front of the field, and Robin Aston in the end, unfortunately, having that early technical issue, and the big question we would have loved the answer to is how would it have gone between the two of them if they had been together all race? Well, we can't have that answer, but we can have the answer to the fact he was the man who took the checker flag, head of Glass Step Racing's Luke Bailey, a lonely race for him as well, but a well-deserved podium. And then James Bostock for Kami GP2 there returns to the podium after a long break, but gets it straight away at the start of the season. Dean Sheesby from Moonshiners Racing Club and sim coaches Robin Powner completed your Premier top 5. Head of Andrew Fellows there for Flatline Racing ahead of his teammate Rob Smith. And your top 10 was completed by James Pallett for Flat Racing League Hub. Head of Blue Sky Esports is Stuart Rice, 3 seconds between the two of them. But from Rice to Pete Piver, the LS Racing driver who rounded off the top 10, it was only a second if that. Well, in fact, it was only a 10th. Let's get that correct. Rob Mackay was 11th there, the best of the rest of the field for Dexterous Motorsports MX, ahead of Kami GP2 Racing Scott Kostrich, with Mark DeVries for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, Danny Ware for Dexterous Motorsports MX, and Mark Johnson for Axis and Sport Ice completing your Premier top 15. And outside the top 15, let's not forget about them, Ross Norsworthy, and then it was Simon Hunt who was a lap down, as was Liam Leoniso, Hussein Sakadesla, Andrew Montine, Martin Kenyon and Adam Baker there with that retirement. And also, I believe we had a couple more drivers, including Charlie Stoffard, John Lebrett and Robin Aston. Then coming on to the Evo class, last but by no means least, and we saw here Grant Miller take that victory by 12.8 seconds for Phoenix Racing Red over Simcast Racing Team UK's Jordan Maymar. Steve Rubino ran off the top 3 for Hobo Racing. What a drive from him as well, fights his way through the field. And, well, Robert Savage in the end taking 4th place in Michelin Esports. Denny Ploger was 5th, the MJK Sim Racing driver, in the end gradually grafting his way to a top 5, head of Targa Reza for 9 Pegasus Pantera, and from the Brazilian, of commiserations there for Dexterous Motorsports MX's Sean Clark, who did seem to be on course to be taking a podium, but unfortunately a late incident cost him quite dear midway through the race. Craig Dillison fought hard for an 8th place finish for Rhino Academy ahead of the privateers of Eddie Theobald and Andy Rooney, and outside the top 10, a lap down for them, Oliver Forstrom in 11th for Quatermass Motorsport ahead of Matthew Hunter, with Rachel Hugh, Daniel Paul and Andy Chell completing the class's top 15. Matt Stace was 16th for Flatline Racing ahead of 2 laps down for Barry Wenman and Alex Boniface, and then retirements and non-classifications for Samuel Clark, Samuel Reba, Owen Seward, Philip McConaughey, and also there, I do believe, Jonathan Berry and Austin Graff. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a rundown of the finishing positions and the results, and that means all of our racing does come to a close. But fret not, we've still got plenty more to come on this broadcast, and coming up in approximately 5 to 6 minutes' time will be interviews with our volunteer drivers. So we're going to get set for those, but as we do let us know what you've enjoyed of the racing today, and who you've been cheering on if you haven't already, and we will see you in about 5 minutes' time to kick off those all-important post-round interviews.
Of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn 1 side by side. Has had a good start. He's up 2 places around the outside of Luke Lucchese, 3 wide there. The blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plug could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does the Noblica defend going into the chicane? Is Plug going to do that tactic where you just stay there right until the last Noblica moves over to the entry into the chicane? Good driving. That's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes till we reset and go again gives the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Katrali all don't get out Raj Harper either. 2 by 2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphrey. He's also a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Kalle Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. So they'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the slipstream? That could be crucial. now will be on the clock as the pace car is about to roll back in. GT3, so many of them about to get racing. GT4 is just in behind as well. A brand new season is about to get going here at the Sachsenring. It's ESR's GT European Championship, and Anton Kalo will lead us to green for the opening time this season. Jason Baxter and Jenny Teha just in behind as the lights are on. The green flag flies, and there's a couple of drivers pulling out immediately of the pack. 3 wide, nearly 4 wide into the opening turn, with Denzel Clarkson trying to find an inside line. Jenny Teha as well.
More, he's got Craig Hewlett in P11 just coming down the pit lane now with Henry Garcia, so this is going to end up being quite a tight battle. If they're going to also have Pedro to deal with, who would just be coming out in front of them. Yeah, he's a little bit further down the road, so these two are going side by side through a very, very tricky section. Looks like Craig's got the better of it done for the moment.
Seconds in the pit strategy, whether it's a 20-minute overcut, 20-minute undercut, we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Jenny Teha and Jason Baxter are fighting it out for the lead of the overall race. Baxter trying to make his way through. It'll have to be an outside line into turn 2, where a GT4 sits on the racing line. That's for number 14, but they have to negotiate their way around. But as they run through turns 2 and through turn 3, they don't have to now worry about that GT4 any longer, and can continue working their way down a long way. And it can help you build in things like GT3, maybe some prototype cars as well. But yeah, it's so impressive to see him doing so well at the front of the field. Joe Glass getting himself, his teammate I should mention, as I said. Oh, still tries into that. That's a send from Dave Van Dam very late on the brakes into turn 1, but he's got it stopped in the apex. That's an incredible move. Very, very surprising for Joe Glass to find a car on his inside there, but effective for Dave Van Dam, and he has caught Joe Glass napping.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews to get underway. And we're going to be kicking off with none other than Grant Miller, who joins me immediately in the interview room. Good evening to you, Grant. And well, it's good to have you back on the grid for Season 9, and it's good to see you all fired up in a very hot and fiery McLaren 720S. Victory in the Evo class today, you must be absolutely ecstatic.
Hello, good evening. Yes, that was not expected. I didn't think I'd be that far up with a new car, but the new tyres, everything just worked well, and to be fair, it's the only one that seemed to turn and slow down for me, so good start. Just see where it can go from there.
Well, you sound surprised by your performances today, but I have to ask then, with that surprise in the Phoenix Racing Red McLaren, 5th in qualifying, 1st in class, I mean, at what point did it become a surprise to you midway through qualifying? Was it sort of in the early stages where you thought to yourself, hold up a second, we're on pole here and it's looking very good and we're right up towards the front, or was it right at the end of qualifying where it's sort of, we're up there?
Yeah, it was more towards the end. I know that the cars are taking about 3 laps to warm tyres up to proper temperature and pressure. And we were gaining maybe a couple of tenths a second per lap. And in the pre-season in Okayama, I actually tried to fill the car halfway, come in, top it up, and do the other half of qualifying on warm tyres. You can't do that. So I had to basically put 10 laps worth of fuel in the car and then just hope that the times would come down and down and down. And there's a couple of new drivers that have joined ESR in the Evo category, and I don't know what their pace is. So I noticed that I think it was Thiago had got a few fast laps at the beginning, and then somebody else got another couple of laps, and then I'm like, right, oh, this is getting tight. There's now like 4 of us swapping positions at the front. And then I think it was lap 7 or 8. I backed off a little bit to try and just sort of settle everything down and see if there was a way of cooling the tyres, and then went for another couple of fast attacks, and I think I pipped the second place guy by half a tenth. So if that's the way the season's going to keep going, then we're in for an absolute cracker.
Oh, most definitely, like you say, and really everyone going into a bit of an unknown with qualifying in terms of what's the optimum way to deliver the best qualifying times, and in the end you seem to just about find it. But of course, qualifying in any race is just one part of the story. But at Daytona, it's almost a way of simply saying that's where you're going to start in the pecking order of everyone wanting to gain the draft of each other. Race start comes around, very quickly you find yourself falling back a little bit. Tiago makes his way ahead, but you're still just staying there, comfortably just watching in the distance.
Yeah, so in in the pre sort of season testing, I had tried different wing angles, and I settled on a wing angle for qualifying to because you're out on your own, you can't draft anybody. And then in the race, I thought, what do I do? Do I keep the same wing? Do I drop the wing? Do I raise the wing? Well, I know if I drop the wing to a lower angle, I'm literally off at the bus stop. That's just a guarantee. I'm in the wall. So it was more a case of, right, well, I'll play safe for the first race, being a double points race, and I'll keep a slightly higher wing, and then see if that helps me or hinders me. We've got a couple of other fast tracks later on at Fuji and a few others that it'll maybe help me. But it was just a case of, right, let's see where we go, see if the premiers come through, see if Tiago pulls away from me, just basically take the first sort of 10 minutes and see what happens. And I think Rob Aston disconnected. He was in second. His PC disconnected, he's saying in the chat here. And I think Tiago went off as well somewhere. And I thought, right, okay, well, if that's the way it's going to start in the first 10 minutes with glitches or cold tyres, I'm just going to sit here, and if somebody comes past me, that's fine. But I'm not going to go out on full all-out attack until I really get everything up to temperature and see who's around me, because some of the cars take a little bit longer to get up to speed. So I was just thinking, play it steady, see what happens, let it sort of pan out, and then if we've got anything left in the tank halfway through coming into the pit stops, then we can maybe fight, and if not, I'll settle for a cautious first race.
Well, it definitely worked out, and that caution, I think, playing dividends for you over the race distance. Although, I have to ask, as we did see your fellow Evo drivers start to drop away over the distance, and in the end it was really yourself running up front, the temptation seemed to creep in more and more to go hunting after the Premier drivers and even potentially try to chase down an overall podium towards the end. Just take us through that, because you've already got the win in the bag, or at least by the most part, and then James Bostock is right in front of you, and a third place overall is waiting there only about 100 yards up the road.
Yeah, I'm not bothered about the overall position. I've just got to get points for the team and get points on the board for the Evo. James had faster pace during the pre-season warm-up race. He was always 2 or 3 tenths faster, so I knew that's why I was debating, do I trim it out and go with a lower wing and try and latch onto them and see if I can keep the pace, or do I just sort of plumb for where I am in race one? And when James came through, I was able to keep a hold of him for a few laps. Then Dean came through like a missile, and I thought, right, well, if that's the way, I'm not risking door handles and mirrors just for the sake of not letting these guys get away, as long as I know where the guys are behind me in my class. And that was all it was. It was just keeping an eyeball on the leaderboard, seeing who was around me, not taking too many risks. And then pit stops came, and then it's all on its head. I jumped Dean by a couple of seconds in the pits. I gained a little bit on James, I think, and then we got back markers, and then I started to close back in, and that's where I thought maybe there's a podium. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter. I don't get any extra points for it. There's no cookies getting handed out for this. So see what's happening. Dean wanted a jump at James for the last couple of laps, so I let him come through, but he wasn't quick enough, so he gave me that position back. So I think we were 5th. I'm not, maybe 4th, I think I was. So that was fine. I just didn't have the pace on James. I caught him at the end, but that was whilst he was getting through traffic.
Oh, absolutely fair, and I appreciate your analysis. It definitely was 4th overall in the end, but more importantly, like you say, class victory. And well, I think we might have to potentially, I do like the idea of there being a podium, well, overall podium cookies there for our over podium finishers. So if James Bostock is listening right now, or any of the organisers, I'm sure they're making a note. But joking aside, one thing that definitely was the treat and didn't crumble at any point was your comfort in the McLaren. You seem to be very comfortable in this car, albeit Daytona, a very different circuit from Okayama.
Okayama was fine. I lost it with a screen stutter, but I've now decapitated crew chief. He's gone, and the stutters have gone. So we've been fighting this for half a season, and the Okayama pace was okay, but I spun out. Pace here's been good with the team in testing, but I'm not testing with anybody else. I don't know who's around me in my class, so it might have been great, and I might have been 10th. I wouldn't have known. Turn up on the day and you're fast, and as long as you don't fall off, it's points in the bag. I think this track suits the smoothness I've got for maybe some of the turn-ins and the braking. I think some of the other twistier tracks, I think we've got Brands Hatch and VIR coming up, so anything could change in that. I've got no idea what it's going to be like on twistier tracks. This was the start. This was the double points header. This was the single race. This was the get points on the board race. So I spent a lot of time practicing this one. I haven't done anything on the other tracks really.
Well, absolutely fair, and you've scored all the points you wanted. And looking ahead now to round number 2, in a week's time, we make our way to the United Kingdom to a circuit much more local to yourself, albeit in the relative global scheme of things. It's the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. How do you fancy your chances in the 2 sprint races?
Don't know. There's not a lot of places to overtake. There's been a few people on the chat saying it's more a case of waiting until everybody else falls off, but on some tight twisty tracks I've done a fair share of falling off myself, so I don't know. Absolutely no idea. It's a small track for 60 cars. It's not super wide. It's got a few weird corners and bumps, so don't know. Just going to have to plug away at it for a week and see what happens.
Well, we look forward to seeing you do exactly that and what you bring to the table in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Grant, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
So just a shout out to all the team that's joined for this season. I think we've got 9 signed up this season. I've got to go and figure out where everybody else is in A split, because there's 7 in A split and only myself and Charlie in B split. So shout out to all the teammates, new and old. Let's keep plugging away, see if we can improve. And thanks to the missus for bearing with us while we go through all this shouting and screaming at the screen while I'm getting screen tears and stutters for the last 2 months. So shout out to the family on that one.
Goodness me, Grant, it's definitely been a journey, but the journey now definitely paying dividends, at least in this season open at Daytona. Well done once again on the victory today. Really a star in the McLaren, and we look forward to plenty more at Brands Hatch in a week's time. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Yes, Paul, thanks very much. Excellent broadcast. We'll catch up soon.
So here and there from Grant Miller, ladies and gentlemen, our Evo class winner. And, well, he couldn't quite believe it at the end of qualifying, and he couldn't quite believe it over the race distance. Yes, he had rivals who were on the pace with him, none other than Thiago Areza. But the difference was in the end that Miller did not drop the ball. He played it smart, and much like his adage in Season 8, where he had opportunities to battle with Premier drivers, he's not concerned about them. All he wants to do is bring home class victory and whip it off into distance. And with the screen tearing issues and multiple issues he was having towards the end of Season 8, to get on top of those and to get on top of the McLaren, you could hear it in his voice. This is definitely the Grant Miller from the first half of the season of Season 8. He is back, and long may it continue, because a happy Grant is an exciting Grant to watch race. And in that McLaren, I definitely think he's going to be hard to dishevel off the pace. Brands Hatch, very different circuit, as he's admitted, a difficult one to overtake at, and 60 cars around a very tight British circuit. It's going to be intriguing, but I reckon he's going to be ready to rise to the challenge. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews coming up very shortly, and we will be back to speak to another one of the drivers. But who will it be? We will see within the next 30 seconds. So now we come to another interview, ladies and gentlemen, and we move to the Premier class. And joining me in the interview room is none other than Dean Sheesby. Good evening to you, Dean. And the MRC BMW today, looking strong, looking fast. Just missed out on a podium, both overall and in the Premier class. But given where you started and where you finished, you've got to take a lot of positives from today.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic race. Screwed up in the pits. I need to start using calculations and not relying on iRacing, because I ended up with about 6 laps of fuel left in the tank, which killed me. I came into the pits basically level with Bostock, and he ended up 4 seconds in front of me. So yeah, that killed the race off for a podium. But other than that, it was a fantastic race and some great battles. So yeah, really happy with how I got on with it tonight.
Oh, indeed. And in terms of that happiness, of course, we saw plenty of happiness from yourself in the pre-season event. And we'll go into that BMW. It does seem to be paying dividends, the choice of car. But putting it into perspective, one thing I do have to also think about here is the fact that Okayama, a very tight circuit, a very corner-focused circuit. Meanwhile, here at Daytona, a circuit that's all about straights. This BMW is known for going quick.
Yeah, so going through the infields, I was losing out. But when as you say, when I got onto the straights, and it was only when I was in the draft. When it's in the draft, it was very strong. Trying to get into the draft was a different story. So yeah, it is fast when it gets going, but it does need that toe to pull it along to get that speed up, because even though it's got a good top end, it takes a long time to get to it.
Well, it takes a long time to get to its top end, and it sometimes takes a long time to get to where you want to be in the race. What happened in qualifying? 19th overall, 14th in class. Was it just not there, the pace?
Well, I just don't do qualifying well. I never have, never do, and yeah, I want to go cry. To be honest, we were discussing other people's times, and I totally distracted myself. When I was up on a decent lap, looked at the timing boards and looped it, and that was about 8-9 minutes into the practice. So came back out the pits, went straight across the grass, which then gave me a stop and go for cutting the circuit. So yeah, that was basically qualifying, done and dusted.
Oh dear. Well, definitely not a qualified session to remember, but definitely a race to remember. Now, we had quite a bit of drama at the start, and I can imagine starting towards the bottom end of the top 20, you got to witness a lot of it, including the Martin Kenyon, who decided he'd been called to go exit stage left, and a few drivers in front of you also getting a bit wrong. You survived it all, though.
Yeah, both this and, as you said, the practice race, it was pretty much identical. I just managed to stay out of trouble, which was great, and yeah, put my head down and just keep moving forward.
Well, avoiding the drama, moving forward, and very quickly finding yourself chasing into the top 10. Strategy surely had to come a point. I have to ask, though, with the BMW, a bit of a thirsty car, perhaps not the thirstiest out there, at least not compared to, say, the Ford Mustang, but was fuel saving your priority, or was it just gaining the places and we'll sort everything else out in the pit lane?
Well, obviously the pit lane went absolutely Pete Tong anyway, so even it didn't help. But because I was trying to come from the back, a lot of the cars in front were in groups of tows, and trying to obviously get up to them, people getting the tows, obviously easily burning more fuel, so I couldn't really fuel save to a degree. But yeah, as I say, I screwed up in the pits anyway and put way too much fuel in. So yeah, even if I had been, it would have been in vain.
Well, it was unfortunate because we were looking forward to a great showdown for third place between yourself and James Bostock. It wasn't quite to be, although we did get to see you have the occasional nip, our Evo winner who we just spoke to, Grant Miller. I mean, just take us through that as well, because you've got to pass Grant to get to James, and all the way through that procession, Grant was there constantly, sort of as a third-party actor. I bet you were sort of thinking to yourself, can you just go away, Grant? Just go play with somebody else.
To be honest, when I was trying to catch the two up, I was egging him on because he was causing Bostock issues left, right and centre, which was fantastic for me because, as I say, I needed to get into that draft and I was sitting out of it for a long, long time, and I could just keep seeing the parts where they were strong in the infield. They were fighting and it's like, it's closing down here, and then it's slowly creeping again. So yeah, he did me a favour in some sense, and then when I got onto him, he didn't make it easy and I just sent it on him. And then the second time I had to get past him, and hence why I gave him the place back just before the finish line, I gave him the ultimatum. I said, you're in pole and Evo, take your pick, Grant. I'm either coming past or you're letting me pass. So he kindly gave me the place, and then because I wasn't catching Bostock, I just returned the favour.
Oh, absolutely love it. Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We had not quite the Bourne ultimatum, but we're going to refer to at this point as the Sheesby ultimatum, play out at Daytona. But still, from ultimatums being given, a solid start to your season, 4th place in Premier, having started 14th. Next week, we head to Brands Hatch, a very different circuit. What can we expect from you in the United Kingdom?
I don't know. I love the track, but every single race I've had there, and I'm probably going to jinx myself again, I have never had a good result there. Now, granted, I've never done it in this on this platform on iRacing. I don't believe I have anyway. But yeah, I never seem to have any good luck there. So I'm going to go outside and do a naked dance or whatever I need to do to get the gods on my side and just give me a little bit of luck.
Oh, goodness me. Well, definitely if a bit of luck comes your way, I think we're all going to be smiling at the end of the day, particularly if you can get yourself onto the podium at Brands Hatch, one of the 2 sprint races. But just before we do let you go, Dean, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to tonight on the broadcast?
Yeah, I'll say to James and to Grant, I've said it to them, but absolutely fantastic racing tonight. They made it well worth the effort tuning up and putting the time into practice just to have them battles. The battles were really good. So yeah, big hats off to them, and extremely well done to Grant for getting his win in Evo. He drove an absolute solid race. And then to the Moonshiner boys again, we've been helping each other out, testing cars out and everything. It's a week or 2 just gone to get to where we are. So yeah, and then to yourself for the broadcast, can't wait to watch it back in a minute. So go calm down and recoup yourself and lay back and watch the stream over.
Well, you definitely deserve it, Dean. What a drive from yourself. Shame it couldn't quite be a podium, but hey, as far as season openers go, 14th in class to 4th, I think that's a big tick in the box, and we look forward to plenty more in a week's time at Brands Hatch. But until then, have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you once again next Thursday.
Yeah, Andrew, mate. Thank you very much.
So hearing that there, ladies and gentlemen, for a very happy Premier driver Dean Sheasby, albeit a very contradictory evening for him. In fact, in qualifying, things just didn't go quite right. In fact, it went so wrong in the end that I think he might have left qualifying slightly thinking to himself, okay, I've given myself a mountain to climb. Starting 19th on the overall grid, he saw a lot of drama at the start, but much like at Okayama in the pre-season races, the one thing he's very good at doing, the Moonshiners Racing Club driver, is head down, avoid the drama, and make the progress. Did exactly that, made his way out through the places, and in doing so very quickly found himself into the top 10, and shortly after starting to breathe down the necks of the top 5. And in the proceedings, well, in this BMW, the one thing he couldn't do was fuel save because he was constantly having to push himself forward in order to gain places. However, the flip side of the coin being, when he came into the pits, we knew he had to put fuel in, but then a mistake in the pits and over-fueling the car meant that he lost the time in the place he gained versus James Bostock and had to do it again. But by then, the problem was he now had to fight his way past Grant Miller firstly, and the Evo driver wasn't going to make it easy. He got it in the end, but in a gentlemanly way, gave the place back, essentially to say to Grant Miller, look, I took it off for you quite forcefully. I didn't get the opportunity to take on James Bostock, so I might as well give you the place back because I don't lose anything by finishing behind you, and I don't gain anything by finishing ahead of you. And great gentlemanly racing, that's what we like to see. And well, onwards we go then, ladies and gentlemen, to round number 2 for Dean Sheasby. And what can he do in the MRC BMW? Well, I think he can definitely put it on the podium. But one more interview to come, ladies and gentlemen. Who will it be? We will see very shortly. And we come to our final interview of the evening, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to be none other than Andrew Fellows from Flatline Racing, who joins me now in the interview room. Good evening to you, Andrew. And what an evening for yourself and your teammate, Rob Smith. The two of you in the McLarens. I mean, whenever we looked to one of you, the other was pretty much joined at the hip, or nose to tail, should I say. And a very strong race from you both as well, finishing 7th overall, 6th in class, having started 20th on the overall grid. I bet you're happy with this one.
Indeed. Good evening. Yeah. I didn't know what to expect. I've been racing with VSR for a little while, but never done the GT3 League due to clashes on a Thursday. And Mr. Bostock, one of the days, kept twisting my arm. So I said, okay, go on, I'll give it a go. And yeah, so I really enjoyed that, to be fair. And great little battle with me and Rob. But yeah, I got the better of him, which is always nice.
Oh, indeed. It's always good to get one of your teammates, so long as you don't make a mistake. As we do briefly see there, you're making your way past him. Well, no, in fact, still following him. Somebody else ejected themselves off the circuit. But we'll come to the racing shortly. Let's talk a little bit about qualifying and the choice of car. McLaren for this season, quite a popular car. It always has been. But what made you pick the McLaren?
So I'd heard off a few people it was a nice car. So I've been driving the Porsche GT3, sort of the last few months in different series. And I was like, I wanted to change, something different. So beginning of the week, I did some testing. So I drove the Ferrari, I drove the Porsche, I drove the BMW, I drove the Acura, the NSX. And the BMW seemed like the best one for me. And then when Rob was saying he was in the McLaren, I designed the livery for us. I was like, I really like the look of this. So I bought it on Tuesday, I think it was, and I gave it a few laps, and I'm like, I quite like this. So I just thought I'll give it a punt and see how we get on.
Well, for deciding to just give it a go and seeing what happens, it very quickly seemed to click together. Albeit, I suspect qualifying was quite a bit of a learning experience. 20th overall, 15th in class, and a brand new tyre model, but plenty of time to get used to that new tyre model.
Yeah, so with qualifying, I was getting quicker every lap. I sort of took it easy for the first few laps, obviously with the new tyre model. And I was getting quicker and quicker, and I was actually up on my one of my later laps. But then I had a spin 2 laps from the end out of the first horseshoe. And then because of this new tyre model, it then resets your tyre temperatures to 0. That was it, game over. I couldn't do anything in 2 laps.
Well, unfortunate there. So not quite the end to qualifying that you wanted, but still, it's not qualifying that scores the points, it's the race. And in the race, we saw early on a number of places made by both yourself and your teammate Rob Smith. Take us through the opening few laps, at least from your perspective, because I can imagine there was a lot of drama around you. And for a newcomer to the grid, it was probably one of those situations whereby you're thinking every 5 seconds, okay, what's happening here?
Yeah, so I'm no stranger to race starts. But yeah, it was interesting on the new tyre model. There was a few spins. I think Martin went stage left. Unfortunately for Martin, then we had going into just before the banking, we had another one go off. So it was just sort of trying to push and keep up without having overstepping it, because obviously the tyres are freezing cold. I had I think it was Andre Muntide behind me, and he was giving me the hurry up. I had Rob in front of me. I was like, I don't want to hit my teammate. So it was a quite tricky first few laps, and the first stint before the pit stop, I think it was quite interesting. Me and Rob being side by side, and it was trying to pick when can I get him safely. Am I actually quicker? And then obviously I pitted, and I came out about 4 seconds in front of him with the pit stop, so that worked out quite well.
Well, worked out very nicely, and in all the back and forth and following your teammate, I mean, I don't know whether you two perhaps talk to each other whilst you're racing, but was there any sort of indicator from Rob that he would like to be the one able to follow and do the fuel saving, because you were getting all the juicy goodness of carrying all the speed but saving the fuel?
No, it wasn't until the we are in the Discord together, but it wasn't until just before the pit stop I was like, oh yeah, I actually probably been saving a lot of fuel actually behind you, Rob. But actually looking at the pit stop times, they were very, very equal. I think my pit stop time was like 52 dead. His was like 52.3 according to iOverlay. So I don't think there was that much in it, because he was constantly behind the odd back marker or Andre in front of him for quite a few laps at the beginning. So I think it sort of evened itself out, but there was a point where he's like, if you're faster, do you want to come through? And I was like, I don't know whether I am. And I got a good run out of the bus stop on the one lap, and I was alongside him, like, I'm having into turn 1, and then he's like, you went really wide, I could have had the undercut, but I'll let you go.
Well, it definitely worked out in your favour in the end, and come the end of the pit stop, you're able to just gradually saunter off into the distance. And speaking of sauntering off into the distance at that point, the next question I understand we have to ask is, And what were you thinking at that point in terms of chasing other drivers down, if at all? Was there an opportunity to chase others, or were you perhaps thinking, I'll just consolidate the position?
No, I was definitely chasing, so I come out a couple of seconds behind Dean, and I was like, I really wanted to get past Dean. I was like, I want to catch up and try and get in top 5. 6th is nice, but top 5 is even better. And I wasn't a million miles away from the likes of Bostock. He was obviously in P3, but it was like 7 seconds. I was like, it's 20 minutes, you know, anything can happen. So I tried to keep it consistent. I was catching a little bit, and then the guy in front of me, I don't know what his name was, but it was a Porsche, and he was a back marker. And as I come up behind him and braked into the second horseshoe, I want to say it was, he braked a bit harder to sort of slow down to give me the inside. But I didn't realise I was just going to follow him through the corner. I nearly went at the back of him, so I lost like 1.5 seconds running wide. But yeah, so I just wanted to get the hammer down and keep it clean and try and catch up, but didn't make any more places, unfortunately.
Well, no further places were made, but still plenty of places were made early on, and come the end of it all, a solid start to your season, a 7th overall, 6th in class, and a place to build from when we head to Brands Hatch. Speaking of which, how are you feeling for the British circuit?
Yeah, I like Brands. I've driven there a few times in different classes. So the first one I did was TCR, so you did the TCR with ESR, and that was the first time I'd ever done league racing. And I in class, it was the AM class, but I came like 2nd and 3rd, I think, in those races. So I'm quietly confident, but I'm going to do some practice because these guys are quick. So I can't hold anything for granted. I've got to do some serious practice to make sure I can at least try and keep up. But I think 2 top 10s, because I think it's 2 half-hour races. 2 top 10s, I think I'd like.
Well, 2 top 10s would definitely be a big result and enable you to keep moving forward in your campaign. We look forward to seeing whether you can achieve that at Brands Hatch. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
As usual, thanks to my teammates at Flatline Racing, all did really well. Rob, great battle with him. Everyone at ESR that made this possible. I know there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes to get all this up and running. And obviously yourself doing the broadcast. I'm looking forward to watching that back. I've seen a few of your broadcasts. It should be brilliant.
Oh, well, thank you, Andrew, and a big thank you to you for joining me for an interview this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear your perspective in your debut on the GT3 grid and enjoying racing alongside your teammate Rob Smith all the way through, as we do see you making that cheeky pass up the inside into turn 1 and just about making it stick. But with that, we're going to leave it there. Well done the result. We'll see you at Brands Hatch. Upwards and onwards, my friend, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, Paul, and you.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen, hearing from Andrew Vellows, the premier driver from Flatline Racing, and enjoying his racing tonight, no doubt about it. Over the course of the racing, well, talking a little bit about, firstly, his choice of car, going for the McLaren, a car that definitely seems to be within the Flatline Racing spectrum in terms of the car of choice, and opting to go with it alongside his team. Going onto the grid then, Artona's arm twisted to finally make his GT3 appearance. Qualifying didn't quite work out, and towards the end of the session, a late spin cost him the opportunity to improve upon his pace, and only couldn't go any further, so he'd have to do it over the race distance. But the majority of the opening stint of the race, at least, being made to work with Rob Smith, his teammate. But where Rob was leading, it was Andrew who was able to stay in the tow and follow him all the way around and save plenty of fuel before making that move to take the position. And after doing that, well, the rest was history in the pit lane, where he was able to leapfrog his way away from Rob. He went hunting for the drivers up the road, including for 6th place Robin Ponia, but unfortunately the Corvette was a little bit too far away, and at the end of the day, well, it was for Andrew a 7th place overall and a 6th place in class he had to settle for. But all things considered, he's not feeling down about it and really fancies his chances at Brands Hatch after doing well in the TCR series by Evolution Sim Racing there in the AM class, picking up back-to-back podiums. Well, it's a different style of machine, but to be fair, if he's confident with the circuit, that can already mean a lot, and we look forward to seeing whether he can make some magic happen there in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to a close for our interviews. And here are our 3 interviews for today who we've spoken to. We just heard from Andrew Fellows for Flatline Racing in the Premier Class, but prior to him, we started off with Evo Class driver from Phoenix Racing Red, your class winner and pole sitter, Grant Miller. And then in between the two, Dean Sheesby there for Moonshiners Racing Club, the Premier Class driver, who carved his way through from a 19th place start to a 5th place overall, and we're at 4th place in Premier Class. A huge congratulations to all 3 of our drivers for their results today, and a big thank you to them for all joining me for interview. And I'm sure we're going to hear from 3 other drivers over the course of the racing after Brands Hatch in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now thinking to yourself, you know what, I really like watching this and I want to be on the grid at Evolution Sim Racing. What do you have in store for me? Well, we of course have our Thursday GT3 Championship evenings, that being Season 9 of the GT3 Championship. On Sundays, we have the ongoing parallel series of the European GT Championship, the America's GT Challenge series that is upcoming there. If you're interested in the combination of GT3 and GTE machinery, a very unique championship, not done in the sim racing space by many a major community, and we're going to make it work. And we also do have an alternative Sunday evenings, the Danny Lee Porsche Cup, brought to you by Danny Lee in combination with GT Omega, where it's all about the Porsche 992 GT3 Cup car. But if you don't want to pay to be on the grid for a series, and in fact you just perhaps want to be able to join the community and do some free practice, we do of course have our free to join practice league that runs on Tuesday evenings and also on Saturday afternoons. So there's something for everyone here at Evolution Sim Racing, and for all that and more, if you do want to be on the grid or just join the Discord community, use the invite link available on screen, alternatively the QR code. We'd also like to take this moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors. We do include Trophy AI, who power the GT3 Championship, Carme Technology. We also do have their sim coach, GP2 Group, and also would like to say a big thank you to Motorsport UK's esports division, who continue to recognise Evolution Sim Racing as a recommended community. We're very grateful for it, and a big thank you to Motorsport UK esports division. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we turn our attentions then to a week's time, and with it, we make our way into July, and we make our way to the Garden of England, that is the Kent countryside, for the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Home to GT3 class racing on an annual basis in the GT World Challenge European Sprint Cup is a circuit that will be absolutely packed full of GT3 machines as our drivers roll the way around it. But on Thursday, the 3rd of July 2025, we've overtaken that premium. Who's going to be the best in qualifying and who's going to be able to hold on to their mettle at the circuit that's incredibly narrow, and with it being incredibly narrow, mistakes are only a corner straight away. We'll tune in then to find out how the story continues in Season 9 of Split B of the GT3 Championship. But until then, we've been Evolution Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit and Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.